Chapter 1195. Looking at the 7 Yuan coast swordsmen sitting in the sky, who were equivalent to Emperor Sword level swordsmen, all the spectators under the sky were so scared that they did not dare to breathe. This was too scary. If these 7 people went crazy, it was hard to say what would happen to London. At the very least, the land and the sea outside London would all be turned into nothingness. Time passed, and when the hour hand gradually approached the position of 10 o'clock in the morning, the void on the platform broke open, and Longsher Jindy, dressed in ordinary casual clothes, walked directly out of the void door. It was no longer the lightning figure that had appeared before, but the real Longsher Jindy. At the same time, a maglev flying car drove out of London. The audience present recognized this maglev flying car. It was Guxian Yuan's maglev flying car. It seemed that today's 2 protagonists had arrived at this arena one after another. Longsher Jindy, who was in the sky, was about to say something when he suddenly heard the sound of gongs and drums in the distance. However, this sound did not seem to come from London, but from the distant end of the sea and the sky. What kind of music is this? Why have I never heard such music before? Hearing the sound of gongs and drums, the audience present could not help but talk. This kind of music, which was a combination of instruments such as swona, gongs, drums, flutes, and so on, was a song that the audience present had never heard before. Yes, but it's strange that this song has a kind of festive feeling in my head, making me want to laugh. Another audience member said, while shaking his head, "This sound is..." As the sound of gongs and drums became louder and louder, warrior sage Guan Yu, who was sitting on the dragon throne, frowned and said thoughtfully, "Is this the sound of gongs and drums at a wedding?" Hee. Second Master Guan Yu has good hearing, but in this world, only you can still recognize this song. The Dragon King of the West Cao Run said with a laugh. Indeed, after the great cultural destruction, the world had not thought of pure traditional Chinese wedding songs for hundreds of years. Therefore, when the audience present heard the cheerful sound of gongs and drums, they were puzzled. "So you're saying that this music was caused by you?" Guan Yu asked. "Look," Ao Run pointed to the west. Everyone followed Ao Run's finger and looked in the same direction. They were stunned to find that in the west where the sea and the sky met, there was actually an extremely arrogant team. This procession was made up of over 100 true dragons. At the very front were 48 true dragons blowing trumpets and beating drums. Behind them were another 48 true dragons pulling 48 dragon carriages. Each dragon carriage was filled with pearls, gold, luminous pearls, jasper, and other rare treasures. In the middle of the procession, 16 true dragons were lifting an extremely luxurious dragon sedan. This dragon sedan was woven with colorful silk and embedded with 18,000 pearls of exactly the same size. In addition, there were 32 football-sized luminous pearls embedded in various positions of the dragon sedan. In front of the palanquin, there were 32 true dragons holding up a bright red dragon plaque. The words "Bride Escort" were clearly written on the plaque. This team of 144 true dragons was actually here to escort the bride. When this general was still alive, a big family would at most call 7 or 8 dragon dance teams to get married. But now, there are actually more than 100 real true dragons coming to escort the bride. Seeing this scene in front of him, Lord Guan unexpectedly showed a somewhat envious expression. At the beginning, this wedding procession was still at the end of the sea and the sky, but in the blink of an eye, it stopped on the platform. The media below the stage frantically aimed the cameras in their hands at the wedding procession in the sky, trying to capture every detail of this extremely luxurious wedding procession. And the audience watching the live broadcast through the TV station also saw this shocking matter for the first time. While reveling in the luxury of this wedding procession, everyone couldn't help but ask such a question in their heart. "What is this wedding procession for?" "Your Majesty Ao Run, what do you mean by this?" Seeing more than 100 true dragons stop in front of him, Longsher Jindy's eyes widened, and a burst of power quickly rushed out with him as the center. Those true dragons who were beating gongs and drums, carrying palanquins, holding up plaques, and pulling carriages trembled slightly, and then immediately returned to their original state, no longer twisting in the slightest. These are all genuine nether-rank true dragons. Seeing this scene, the other four-peak experts couldn't help but feel their hearts skip a beat. They thought that AO Run had only sent some underage dragons, but they didn't expect that these true dragons were all peak nether-rank true dragons, the mainstay of the dragon race. The meaning behind this was huge. Hey, Your Majesty Longshore, don't be anxious, don't scare my people. As you can see, they are here to escort the bride, not to fight. West Sea Dragon King AO Run said with a smile. Escort the bride? Longshore Jindy snorted coldly. West Sea Dragon King has such a big face, actually using 144 nether-rank true dragons to escort the bride. Your Majesty AO Run, as far as I know, your entire West Sea Dragon Palace only has 80 nether-rank true dragons. Where did you get 144 nether-rank true dragons? Hee hee. My West Sea Dragon Palace doesn't have them, but my 3 elder brothers do. I shamelessly borrowed them from my 3 elder brothers. AO Run said while looking at East Sea Dragon King AO Guang, South Sea Dragon King AO Qin, and North Sea Dragon King AO Shun. The 3 Dragon Kings also nodded in unison, stroked their 2 to 3 meters long dragon whiskers, and said with a smile, Not bad, not bad. Since little brother AO Run has a happy occasion, as his elder brothers, we naturally have to help. Then I'm curious, Your Majesty AO Run sent this unprecedented escort team. Which dragon lady are you going to marry? And why did you come to my arena today to escort the bride? Longshore Jindy said with a cold expression. In Longshore Jindy's view, this escort team is probably here to cause trouble for him. Hey, that's not right. Who said that my escort team is here to marry a dragon lady? AO Run laughed heartily and said, Which dragon lady is not a descendant of my dragon palace of the 4 seas? If you are marrying a dragon lady, there is no need for us to not put up such a big battle array. To tell you the truth, this time I came to propose to one of the beauties present on behalf of my unfilial son AO Guan. Humph humph. What a joke. The beauties present are all human race. How can they be compared to your true dragon clan? Longshore Jindy's expression suddenly changed greatly, and a monstrous aura spread out. He glared at AO Run and said, AO Run, are you crazy? Did you forget that humans and dragons are different? Hee hee. Your Majesty Longshore, you are too much. AO Run patted Longshore Jindy's shoulder and said, Our true dragon clan doesn't mind winning a human girl. Why should your human clan mind? I heard that your human clan often fantasize about a dragon lady marrying you humans, such as that splendid spring sunshine Jubeji, and also some Legend of the Dragon TV series. Oh, that's right. I remember that during the Tang Dynasty, there was a boy named Li Chaowei who wrote a legendary novel called Biography of Lu, which was the story of our dragon lady and your human man falling in love and marrying each other. I heard that it was even used in the textbooks of your Celestial Dynasty era. Isn't this very good? This shows that our human clan and dragon clan have intermarried since ancient times. Today, I've asked for a woman from the mortal world to be my son's wife. This is also a good thing for the 2 clans to be on good terms. This is a very good thing. This West Sea Dragon King AO Run said a lot of things to him, but the problem is that none of the humans present could understand the illusions. What splendid spring sunshine Jubeji, what Legend of the Dragon, what Biography of Lu, they had never heard of any of them. No, Longshore Jindy, regardless of what this West Sea Dragon King said, was adamant. This is not up to your Majesty to decide. AO Run chuckled. The person whom this king is asking for is not a human from your London city. As the Dragon Lion Sword Emperor, you can't do anything about it. It's better for this king to ask himself. AO Run said, ignoring Longshore Jindy's obstruction. He slowly landed on the platform and stood beside the maglev flying car. Then, under the gaze of the people all over the world, he bowed to the maglev flying car, and then said with a face full of hope, Miss Gu Shirhan, I, this old dragon, will give up my old face today and shamelessly plead Miss Shirhan on behalf of my good-for-nothing son. Would you be willing to be the wife of my West Sea Dragon clan? Crash. As soon as A.O. Run said this, not only the people on the platform, but also the people in the 8 base cities were in an uproar. They never thought that this West Sea Dragon King would actually come to propose marriage to Gu Shirhan. F***CK the Dragon Clan. How dare you touch our goddess? The humans present were probably afraid of the presence of the 4 Sea Dragon Kings, so they did not dare to have any reaction. However, the audience in front of the television immediately became angry. What kind of joke was this? A stupid dragon clan actually dared to covet their human goddess. Moreover, she was so powerful. She was only a spirit sword level, but she could defeat an immortal sword level swordbearer and even compete with an emperor sword level swordbearer. These dragons were definitely crazy. As a result, the humans in the 8 base cities began to become irritable. They all cursed the dragon clan as bastards, and that they were toads lusting after swan meat. Among them, the people of Yuzhong reacted the most violently. Gu Shirhan claimed to be from Yuzhong, so Yuzhong City naturally became Gu Shirhan's home. A perfect goddess like Gu Shirhan, of course, should be digested by Yuzhong City. How could she marry a dragon clan? This was unacceptable. Just like Gu Shirhan, with Gu Shirhan's challenge in the past 5 days, a large number of Gu Shirhan's diehard fans appeared on the internet. Since ancient times, diehard fans were the same. Even if their idol had a little bit of a love scandal, they would cry and scream as if their mother had died. They would crazily curse and insult the target of the scandal. Unfortunately, although these humans were very angry, they could only roar through the television. There was no way they could come to the arena outside London. After everyone vented their anger, they could only pray in their hearts that Gu Shirhan would refuse the Dragon Clan's unreasonable request. This should be a matter of course. Which human woman would be willing to marry a pervert like the Dragon Clan? At this time, Gu Xianyuan, who was in the maglev flying car, did not speak, but A.O. Run was chattering through the maglev flying car. He said in a long-winded manner, Miss Shirhan, you don't know this, but after you saved my worthless unfilial son, my unfilial son has been yearning for you day and night. He's in a trance as if he's lost his soul. He doesn't look like a dragon at all. He's worse than a loach in the mud. I hope you can fulfill my unfilial son's yearning. Mississippi, A.O. Run was so long-winded, but Gu Xianyuan, who was in the maglev flying car, did not respond. Even though it was already past 10 o'clock in the morning, there was no movement in the maglev flying car. When it was almost 11 o'clock in the morning, A.O. Run's mouth was so dry that he could not speak. When all the audience's patience was exhausted, Longsure Genie finally could not help but fly down from the sky and frown at the maglev flying car. You don't have to be afraid of him. If you don't want to, just say it. I'll take care of it for you. It's getting late now. You'd better start fighting as soon as possible. There was still no response from the maglev flying car. When Longsure Jindy was about to say something, A.O. Run suddenly stopped in front of Longsure Jindy with a hand and said with a wry smile, Your Majesty, can you let this king say one last thing? Longsure Jindy did not speak, but this also showed his attitude. I know that Miss Shirhan is a little unwilling to marry my disdainful unfilial son, but I, A.O. Run, today, on behalf of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, make a promise to Miss Shirhan, and at the same time, make a promise to all the human race. A.O. Run paused, took a deep breath, and then said in a loud voice that could be heard clearly in the whole world, I promise Miss Gu Shirhan here, as long as Miss Gu Shirhan is willing to marry my disdainful unfilial son, my dragon race will henceforth change its course, and is willing to advance and retreat with the human race, go through trials and tribulations, and work hand in hand. The human race's difficulties are my dragon race's difficulties. My dragon race will do its best to save you, even if it means the destruction of our race. F***CK. All the audience felt that their heads were about to explode again. The meaning of A.O. Run's words could not be more obvious. As long as Gu Shirhan was willing to marry his son, then his dragon race was willing to give up the neutral position for the past 1,000 years and completely join the side of the human race and fight side by side with the human race. It could be imagined that once such a powerful force like the dragon race of the Four Seas joined the human race, then although the comparison of the human race and Yuan Ko's hard power would not be overturned, but the gap would be pulled to a very small extent. At least on this sea, the human race's strength could completely crush all of Yuan Ko's. After understanding this point, the position of the human audience, who had just jumped up in anger, changed dramatically in an instant. They had just thought that Gu Shirhan absolutely could not marry the dragon race. But now they suddenly began to look forward to Gu Shirhan agreeing to the dragon race's request, agreeing to marry a dragon race in exchange for the entire dragon race joining the human race. In this way, the safety of the entire human race would be greatly improved, and the possibility of them dying in the hands of Yuan Ko would be greatly reduced. At this moment, do not criticize human nature, because human nature is like this. Of course, these were just the views of the ignorant commoners. In the eyes of the real higher-ups, the dragon race's statement was very problematic. It was not that the higher-ups thought that the dragon race's words were false, but that there must be a deep conspiracy hidden in the dragon race's words. Otherwise, even if Gu Xuanyuan's strength was heaven-defying, the dragon race had no reason to go against their position of 1,000 years and take the huge risk to join the human race's camp. There must be a huge conspiracy behind this. Ao Run, are you crazy? What nonsense are you talking about? Guan Yu and the others jumped up in anger. What a joke. If the dragon race really joined hands with the human race, then all the strongholds of the Martyr's Palace above the sea would be finished. How could they accept such a thing happening? Therefore, although Tesla tried his best to dissuade them, the two hot-tempered Guan Yu and Temujin were the first to rush up and grab Ao Run's dragon horns, as if they wanted to reason with him. The scene immediately fell into chaos. Gu Xianyuan and the Sword Emperor of Dragon and Lion had not yet started fighting, but the two sides had already started fighting. The humans were also happy to watch a good show of dogs biting each other. For a moment, no one paid attention to the maglev flying car and Gu Xuanyuan's situation. No one cared whether Gu Xianyuan was in the car or not. Chapter 1196. The Glastonbury Stronghold was the largest stronghold of the Palace of Valhalla in the suburbs of London. It was located about 180 kilometers west of London and was an important stronghold for the Palace of Valhalla to control London. Ever since the stronghold had been occupied by the Palace of Valhalla, there had been at least 7 large-scale battles between the city of London and the Palace of Valhalla over the ownership of the stronghold. There were wins and losses, and 2 of the battles had even completely expelled the Palace of Valhalla from the stronghold. However, the city of London didn't have the ability to defend the stronghold. Therefore, when the city of London's power declined, the Palace of Valhalla's power would return to the stronghold like an unkillable cockroach. After this cycle for a long time, the city of London had lost interest in attacking the stronghold again. As long as the stronghold didn't have any ideas about attacking the city of London would pretend it didn't see it. Originally, the Glastonbury stronghold was usually guarded by 1 flood-level Yuan Ko. Sometimes, there wasn't even a flood-level Yuan Ko. There were only 1 or 2 universe-level Yuan Ko guarding the stronghold. However, when Long Shi Jindi, an Emperor sword wielder, appeared in London, the Glastonbury stronghold's importance suddenly increased. The Palace of Valhalla immediately sent 3 flood-level Yuan Ko to guard the stronghold. These 3 flood-level Yuan Ko's goal wasn't to attack London. With an Emperor sword wielder and a super-dimensional wall protection system, the base city was almost an impenetrable fortress. Unless the Palace of Valhalla could gather 30 flood-level Yuan Ko, they wouldn't even be able to touch the super-dimensional wall protection system. The purpose of these 3 flood-level Yuan Ko staying at the Glastonbury stronghold was very simple. They wanted to restrain Long Shi Jindi and prevent Long Shi Jindi from moving freely. Especially when the Palace of Valhalla started to plan something big, the 3 flood-level Yuan Ko would do everything possible to keep Long Shi Jindi here, preventing him from supporting the Palace of Valhalla. Just like the attack on Yuzhong City a month ago, it was these 3 flood-level Yuan Ko who held Long Shi Jindi back, preventing Longshu Jiandi from going to Yuzhong City to support. Although the people of Yuzhong City and Gu Xinyuan didn't believe this. Today, the Glastonbury stronghold seemed a little quiet and peaceful because the 3 flood-level Yuan Ko guarding the stronghold had all gone to London to watch the battle. Without the restraint of the flood-level Yuan Ko, the low-level Yuan Ko with low intelligence had already run all over the mountains and plains. The high-level Yuan Ko with normal intelligence were also a little lax. They probably thought that both the humans and the main force of Yuan Ko were attracted by the duel and that there wouldn't be any accidents at the Glastonbury stronghold, so even their defenses were a lot slack. In the past, there were at least 100 sentries around the Glastonbury stronghold, but now there were at most 30 people there, and these people didn't have the mood to monitor the situation around them. So when a tall man in white appeared at the Glastonbury stronghold with an unconscious human in his hand, the 2 Yuan Ko guarding the entrance were shocked and looked at the man in white warily. "What are you doing? Didn't you say that everyone here is on our side? What's the meaning of this?" The man in white asked unhappily when he saw the 2 Yuan Ko guarding the door pick up their weapons. "On our side." The 2 Yuan Ko looked at each other, then carefully looked at the man in white. After they found a trace of rich dimensional energy, the vigilance on their faces disappeared without a trace. Their expressions became relaxed, and they said to the man in white with a smile, "Brother, where are you from? Why haven't I seen you before?" "Sahib, I was still drinking wine yesterday, and today I've come to this godforsaken place. I even met a woman who wanted to kill me on the way. If I didn't have some skills, I'm afraid I would have died in her hands." The white-clothed man gestured to the woman in his hand, then sighed and said, "But thanks to this woman, I at least learned a little about the situation of this world. I heard that you and I are on the same side, so I found this place." "Oh, so you're a brother who just came here through the dimensional gate. No wonder you look so unfamiliar." The 2 Yuan Ko guarding the door laughed and immediately let down their guard. "But brother, although you're on the same side as us, you're actually divided into some factions. Who doesn't know what your identity is in the other world? But I can tell you that this stronghold is controlled by our martyr's palace. Only those brothers who are real humans in the other world can join. If you're not human in the other world, you can find another faction. There will always be people on your side." What a coincidence! If Bai isn't a real human in the other world, then what is he? "Looks like I've finally found the Imperial Court," the man in white said excitedly. "Oh, what a coincidence! I didn't expect you to be one of us." The 2 gatekeepers were also pleasantly surprised. The fact that this white-clothed man could speak to them in such a rational manner meant that he was definitely not weak. At the very least, he was at the dragon rank. The martyr's palace's strength would increase a bit more. "Then, brother, hurry up and tell us what your identity is in the other world, so that we can register and report it, and we will become a family." The 2 guards were also excited. "My name is Li Bai, and my courtesy name is Tai Bai. I call myself Qing Lian. I'm from the Tang dynasty of the East. Please excuse me." Li Bai introduced himself shyly. "What? You're Li Bai?" Unexpectedly, when Li Bai announced his name, the 2 guards jumped up first. Their faces were flushed with excitement, as if they had seen their idol in their lives. "My name is Wang Xiaoming, and my courtesy name is GXIN. I have a pen name called Jingwei. I'm from Guangdong." "Oh no, I'm actually from the Tang dynasty of the East. We're together." Among the guards, a very elegant and handsome man rushed to introduce himself. It turned out that this guard was the legendary Wang Jingwei. "My name is Qin Hui, and my courtesy name is Huizhi. I don't have a pen name. My ancestral home is Nanjing, Jiangsu Province. Of course, I'm also from the Tang dynasty of the East," the other man with a scrawny face said. It turned out that he was Qin Hui. If someone from the future were to see this scene, they would definitely sigh. The 2 most famous traders in China's history had actually gathered together. However, judging from the fact that they were assigned to the gatekeepers, these 2 traders must not have had a comfortable life in the martyr's palace. At the very least, they did not have any status to speak of. Although these 2 traders were rotten to the core, putting aside their wickedness, they were still two great scholars and great intellectuals in name and in reality. Qin Hui's calligraphy was very good, and he was the one who created the song-style characters that were widely used today. Wang Jingwei, on the other hand, was someone who had once written a poem, drawing a knife to a swift end, not letting down a young man's head. How could these two great scholars not know a peerless poet like Li Bai? To put it bluntly, Li Bai could be said to be the idol of every scholar. When scholars in ancient times saw Li Bai, it was like how brainless girls saw Yexo and TFBOY. They were all crazy fans of him. Of course, Li Bai, who was born in the Tang dynasty, had no idea what earth-shattering feats these two would achieve in the future. Seeing them flattering him and praising him sincerely, he could not help but feel close to them. After the three of them chatted enthusiastically at the entrance, Li Bai rubbed his stomach in embarrassment and said, "Bai hasn't eaten for 2 days and 2 nights. Do you have any food here?" "Yes, of course." Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei nodded like chickens pecking at grains. They eagerly pulled Li Bai into the Glastonbury stronghold, saying that they would bring him to the canteen. After entering the Glastonbury stronghold, Li Bai realized that it was surprisingly large. It took him more than 20 minutes to walk from the entrance to the canteen. Judging from the distance, the stronghold was at least tens of square kilometers in size. Precisely because of the size of the stronghold, there were many empty spaces along the way. There were very few houses, and they did not encounter many people. However, to Li Bai's surprise, they only encountered a few bandits along the way. Ignoring the mindless low-level bandits, the high-level bandits all revealed looks of disdain when they saw Li Bai's group of 3. They even deliberately put some distance between them and Li Bai's group of 3. It was as if Li Bai's group of 3 was a pile of shit. Li Bai looked at Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui in confusion. The two of them immediately felt awkward. Of course, they knew why the other Yuan Ko would look at them like that. It was not that there were no Yuan Ko in the Martyr's Palace who knew what they had done. The two of them had stayed in the Martyr's Palace for a long time, and naturally, the deeds they had done had spread. In the Martyr's Palace, where most of the people were heroes, traitors like them were naturally looked down upon and had no status to speak of. "Trouble. Get us some food." Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui said timidly to the window when they finally reached the canteen. "What for?" The chef behind the window looked at Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui coldly. "It's not time to eat yet. What are you two doing here? Do you get hungry easily after doing so many bad things?" No. Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui had lived in this world for hundreds of years, so they were already used to the attitude of the people in the Martyr's Palace. With a slightly flattering smile, they said, "No, we have a brother who just came to this world. He hasn't eaten for 2 days, so we brought him here to eat." "Oomph. To be friends with you too. I'm afraid this kind of brother is not a good brother. There's still 3 hours before the meal starts. Come back to me in 3 hours to beg for food. I won't give you a fart now." The person behind the window scolded them unceremoniously. Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui were left speechless. Finally, Qin Hui mustered up his courage, closed his eyes, and said, "Although we have indeed done some bad things, and we are not good people, you can't insult this brother of ours today. Do you know who this brother of ours is? He's a very famous person after all." Just as Qin Hui was about to say Li Bai's name, Li Bai took the initiative to walk up to the window. He bowed respectfully to the chef behind the window and said, "Chef, my name is Li Bai. If there is no food left, we can wait for a few more hours. We will leave now." After saying that, Li Bai pulled Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei away. "TSK, Li Bai. What Li Bai? I am Li Bai," the chef muttered to himself. Then his face stiffened, and he quickly stuck his head out of the window. He looked at Li Bai nervously and asked shyly, "Sir, are you Li Bai? Are you the Li Bai who said, 'Why don't you ride the wind and fly straight for 90,000 miles?'" "I'm sorry," Li Bai said awkwardly. "I didn't write this poem for nothing. I only wrote, 'One day, the rock rises with the wind and flies straight for 90,000 miles.' Why don't you ride the wind and fly straight for 90,000 miles?" Illiterate. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei looked at the chef with disdain. The chef smiled awkwardly and quickly explained, "It's all my fault. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. I'm not cultured, and I haven't read any books. I just read some jokes on the internet. Please don't laugh at me, Surly. I'm Wang Shuyi, the head chef of this stronghold. Since Lord Li Bai hasn't eaten yet, I'll prepare the food for you right away. It'll be ready in 10 minutes at most. Please wait here, Lord Li Bai." After saying that, Wang Shuyi quickly went to the kitchen to prepare food for Li Bai. "Have a seat. Let's sit down." Li Bai found a clean table and invited Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei, who did not dare to raise their heads, to sit down. From the looks of it, Li Bai seemed to be a veteran of this stronghold, while Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui were newcomers. "Brother Gxin and Brother Gui, it seems that you two are newcomers. Since you are newcomers, I don't care what you did. Since we are fated to meet here today, we are friends. There is no need to be so reserved between friends. You and I can talk freely," Li Bai said with a smile. "Sir Tai Bai." After listening to Li Bai's words, Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui's eyes were filled with emotion. If they had felt close to Li Bai before because of his reputation, now they deeply admired Li Bai from the bottom of their hearts. Soon, Wang Shui brought the heated food to the table. Li Bai, Wang Jingwei, and Qin Hui chatted as they ate. Li Bai was like a newcomer who had just arrived in the stronghold, and he carefully asked them about the situation in this world. Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui naturally told him everything they knew, and the three of them soon became more and more cheerful. "Sir Li Bai, why do you still bring this human swordsman with you? Why don't you just kill him? That way, you will feel more at ease," Qin Hui suggested. "Murder?" Li Bai's expression stiffened, and he said with an ugly expression, "If it was a man, I would have killed him. However, I am a chivalrous man, and I will never kill a woman. Didn't I just tell you, Sir Li Bai? This is not our world. We were born here to kill all the humans here. This is an impulse and filth that comes from the depths of our blood," Qin Hui said in a low voice. "That's right, I do have such an urge, but I still have my own determination. How can I?" Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei seemed to understand something when they heard Li Bai's words. They lowered their heads and looked at the woman's face. Sure enough, she was a peerless beauty. A look of understanding appeared on their faces. Although filth represented the desire to kill, sometimes lust was also a type of desire to kill. This scholar was most likely a dissolute character. It was normal for filth to have no effect on such a beautiful woman. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei looked at each other and smiled. By this time, Li Bai was almost done with his meal, and Wang Jingwei took the initiative to suggest, "Sir Li Bai has just arrived in this world, so he must be tired. Why don't you report to the palace and register your identity? After that, we can arrange a place for Sir Li to stay." "All right, that's great." Li Bai nodded and replied with a smile on his face. Chapter 1197. The cafeteria was not far from the registration hall, so it didn't take them long to reach it. However, the person in charge of registration was nowhere to be found. Li Bai and the other two had no choice but to wait in the hall and continue to chat. Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui were probably moved by Li Bai's words during the meal. After talking for a while, the three of them took the initiative to tell their stories. The two of them were honest. They did not deliberately beautify themselves, nor did they vilify themselves. They just told their lives in a calm and objective manner. Then, the two of them looked at Li Bai hopefully and murmured, "Lord Li Bai, do you really think we are traitors? Do you really think we are the worst villains?" "I see." Li Bai nodded and heaved a long sigh. "Let me be honest with you. You are indeed traitors, but you are not necessarily the worst villains." "What do you mean?" Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui asked quickly. "You betrayed the Han people and became accomplices to the invaders. Of course, you are worthy of the title of traitor. No one can wash it off." Li Bai sighed, "but not necessarily the worst. You two are just poor, selfish people who can't see any hope. Take you, for example." Li Bai pointed to Wang Jingwei and said, "When you chose to associate with the Japanese, it was not because you were stingy with your life. Otherwise, you could have escaped from China and taken refuge in other countries. The Japanese might not have been able to make things difficult for you. The reason why you made such a choice was because you were selfish and couldn't let go of your power. Secondly, you did have the future of Huaxia on your heart. You believed that the Japanese would definitely win and Huaxia would lose. You also wanted to help Huaxia keep more benefits after Huaxia was destroyed. Your heart is still with Huaxia. As for you, Li Bai looked at Qin Hui and said, "You are even more pitiful than Wang Jingwei. It may have been your intention to make peace with the Golden Man, but you may not have killed Yu Fei on a groundless charge. You and Yu Fei, one is a scholar and the other is a warrior. No matter how great Yu Fei's contributions are, he may not replace you. There is no need for you to harm Yu Fei. However, Yu Fei's Clan army has threatened the position of His Majesty the Emperor. His Majesty the Emperor knew that killing Yu Fei would incur eternal infamy. Therefore, he needed a chamber pot to scoop up his dirty stuff. You are nothing but that chamber pot." Lord Li Bai is wise. "Your Excellency Li Bai, you are really..." Hearing Li Bai's words, Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui burst into tears, just like Lin Daiyu in the dream of the Red Chamber. Li Bai comforted the two of them, and only then did their tears stop. After this incident, Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui had completely become friends with Li Bai. They felt that they had become close friends with Li Bai, and the scope of their conversation broadened. They talked about the history of thousands of years ago, the present, and the mysterious Glastonbury stronghold. As the conversation deepened, under Li Bai's deliberate guidance, the topic shifted to swords. Li Bai sighed and said, "I don't have many hobbies in my life, but I have 3 hobbies that I can't get rid of." "Don't worry, Your Excellency Li Bai. How about I guess Your Excellency's hobbies?" Qin Hui laughed. He held up 3 fingers and said, "The first one must be poetry. Li Bai, the immortal of poetry. Your Excellency Li Bai is known as the immortal of poetry. I guess Your Excellency Li Bai's greatest hobby is writing poems." "I guess the second one." Wang Jingwei rushed to say, "The second must be wine. As the saying goes, Li Bai wrote hundreds of poems about wine. Without wine as a companion, how could Lord Li Bai write good poems? His second hobby must be wine. Then I will say the last one." Qin Hui glanced at the unconscious woman beside Li Bai. "In fact, in addition to being known as the immortal of poetry, Your Excellency Li Bai is also known as the immortal of sword. Who doesn't know the name of Green Lotus Sword Fairy? Lord Li Bai, your last hobby must be the Sword Fairy." "Pa! Pa!" The long bench that Li Bai was sitting on suddenly began to shake violently, making a pa-pa-pa sound when it hit the ground. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei took a closer look and found that it was the woman that Li Bai had captured. "Oh, it seems that she has woken up. Don't worry, I will knock her out again." Li Bai smiled awkwardly and slapped the back of the woman's head. The woman immediately quieted down and stopped moving. "Ha! We thought that Your Excellency Li Bai was a man who had tender and protective feelings for women. I didn't expect that he would be so rude, just like us." Seeing this, Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei burst into laughter, and the atmosphere of the conversation became more lively. "Both of you have guessed correctly about Bai's hobbies. They are poetry, wine, and swords." Li Bai stroked his beard and said, "But the order is wrong. In fact, it's completely reversed. In my life, Bai loves swords the most. Wine comes second, and poems are something I wrote when I was bored. It can't be considered my favorite hobby. So that's how it is." Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei looked at Li Bai with admiration in their eyes. The poems that had been passed down for thousands of years were written when he was bored. How high was his realm? They could not help but wonder how powerful Li Bai's favorite swordsmanship was. "By the way, since we were talking about swords, I have another question. I hope you can tell me the truth," Li Bai suddenly said. "Please ask, Your Excellency Li Bai. As long as I know, I will tell you everything I know." Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei hurriedly said, "It's like this. When Bai was in the Tang Empire, he carried a green lotus sword with him. However, he was in a hurry, so he left the sword in the Tang Empire and did not bring it with him. As a result, he did not have a suitable weapon with him. Therefore, may I ask if there are any weapon rooms in this stronghold so that I can choose 1 or 2 good swords to use? That's easy. We don't have many things here, but we have a lot of weapons, including swords. After Your Excellency has finished registering, we will take you to the weapons room to choose a good sword. Qin Hui said loudly. He had thought that Li Bai had some outrageous request, but it turned out that he only wanted a sword. It was too easy. Sigh, it will take a while for Bai to register. Why don't you and I go to the weapons room to take a look? Li Bai said urgently. This, according to the rules, one cannot go to the weapons room before being officially registered as a member of the Martyr's Palace. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei hesitated. What kind of rule is that? According to you, Bai is a guy who has transmigrated from another world, so he will definitely join your Martyr's Palace. He does not have a second choice. It doesn't matter whether you register or not. At most, you can just say my name and see who doesn't know who I am, Li Bai said with a displeased expression. Your Excellency must be joking. The kid in charge of the weapons room is also an admirer of yours. Saying your name is more useful than anyone else. All right, let's take you to the weapons room and let you choose a good sword. Under Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei's attentive guidance, Li Bai took a few more turns before arriving in front of a rather magnificent building. Qin Hui carefully approached the door of the weapons room and said timidly, Mr. Jia Xian, we have brought our new brother to choose a weapon. Please open the door and let us in. You dog trader, you still have the face to talk to me? Get out of here. You are not welcome here. A loud voice mercilessly berated Qin Hui from inside the weapons room. Qin Hui was as embarrassed as a dog in front of this person. Mr. Jia Xian, to tell you the truth, you can refuse to let me in, but you can't not let Mr. Tai Bai in. Qin Hui smiled bitterly. He could only say Li Bai's name. What? Mr. Tai Bai has also come to this world? The door of the weapons room was instantly pushed open, and a thin, middle-aged man with a neat goatee walked out. He was stunned at first sight of Li Bai. After carefully looking at him for a while, he immediately bowed deeply to Li Bai. This bow was more than 90 degrees. Brother, please get up. Li Bai hurriedly helped Mr. Jia Xian up. Mr. Tai Bai is here. How can I dare to get up? This Mr. Jia Xian refused to straighten his back, no matter what. Li Bai wanted to use brute force to help him up, but when he exerted force, he found that the other party's back was as hard as a rock. Only then did he realize that this Mr. Jia Xian was actually quite strong. Well, Mr. Jia Xian, this is the first time we have met. How do you know that I am Tai Bai Li? Li Bai asked helplessly. To be honest, Mr. Jia Xian, I'm also a poet. Poets have their own unique temperament. And in this world, there is no poet who can make people feel like they are a great mountain like Mr. Tai Bai. If you're not Mr. Tai Bai, then you are Shaoling Wild Elder. Mr. Jia Xian said sincerely. I'm not worthy to be compared to Brother Du Fu. You are flattering me. Li Bai laughed. The Shaoling Wild Elder that Mr. Jia Xian mentioned was Du Fu. Shaoling Wild Elder was Du Fu's title, which was the same as Li Bai's Qing Lian. Li Bai was known as the immortal poet, and Du Fu was known as the sage of poetry. One immortal and one sage were the only two peaks in the history of Chinese poetry. Mr. Jia Xian, how should I address you? Li Bai asked. I shouldn't use my lowly life to dirty Mr. Tai Bai's ears, but since Mr. Tai Bai has asked, then I can only answer. Mr. Jia Xian paused, then said in a more respectful tone, My surname is Xian, and my name is Qiji. My courtesy name is Jia Xian, and I am from Jinan, Shandong in the Southern Song Dynasty. The person I admire the most is Mr. Tai Bai. You are from the Southern Song Dynasty? Li Bai was stunned. He suddenly remembered that Qin Hui was also from the Southern Song Dynasty, and he was the prime minister of the Southern Song Dynasty. Thinking of how Xian Qiji had reprimanded Qin Hui like a dog, Li Bai couldn't help but feel funny. It was as if one day he suddenly found out that there was a deputy mayor reprimanding the prime minister like a dog. All right, let's not stay at the door. Let's go in. Li Bai took Xian Qiji's hand and entered the armory. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei looked at each other awkwardly, then followed them in. Li Bai looked around the armory and found that it was quite large. There were all kinds of weapons in all directions, including swords, spears, halberds, axes, and other weapons. There were dozens of types, and there were tens of thousands of weapons in total, even in Chong, and such an armory would be the best armory. Mr. Jiaxian, this is why I am here. Li Bai briefly explained his purpose. After hearing it, Xi and Qiji immediately said that Li Bai could take as many weapons as he wanted, and he didn't mind even if he took all of them. You're exaggerating. I'm just looking for a suitable weapon. Li Bai laughed, then led the others to a special area where swords were placed. After looking around carefully, he took out a sword that glistened with a cold light. You have a good eye, Tai Bai Master. This is the highest sword on the shelf. It's called the Cold Iron Sword, and it's made of 1,000-year-old cold iron. In terms of quality, it's comparable to a human ancient sword maiden. Xi and Qiji hurriedly explained. Cold Iron Sword. Li Bai held the sword in his hand and swung it in the air. It would have been better if he hadn't swung it, but as soon as he swung it, the sword made a crisp sound. Then, half of the sword's blade flew out and stuck into the wall of the ice room. Oh my God! Seeing this, Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei felt their legs go weak. They had never thought that Li Bai would be able to destroy a sword that was equivalent to an ancient grade sword maiden with a single swing of his sword. Just how terrifying was Li Bai's strength. Amazing! Xi and Qiji also let out a sigh of admiration. Xi and Qiji was also an expert swordsman, but if he wanted to be like Li Bai just now, he was still not strong enough. He needed to swing the sword 70 or 80 times before he could break the Cold Iron Sword. Mr. Jiaxian, I'm sorry, but I'm afraid this sword is not suitable for me. Li Bai apologetically placed the broken hilt in Mr. Jiaxian's hand. Tai Bai Master, what do you mean? If we martial artists don't have a suitable weapon, how can we understand each other? If Tai Bai Master can find a suitable weapon, then it's not a big deal to destroy all the weapons here. Besides, it's also a blessing for this cold iron sword to be broken in your hands. Xi and Qiji laughed, then opened a box at the side, took out a sword box, and said, Tai Bai Master, this sword is called the True O Sword. It was forged by Ojizi, and it's equivalent to a human sword maiden. Tai Bai Master, please give it a try. Thank you. Li Bai took the sword and swung it a few times. It was still fine, but when Li Bai swung it for the 10th time, the True O Sword broke into two, just like the Cold Iron Sword before it. Don't worry, there's a better one here. Xi and Qiji took out another sword, but it was destroyed by Li Bai on the 18th swing. In just 10 minutes, Xi and Qiji found 7 or 8 swords in the armory, and they were all top-notch swords that were equivalent to a sword maiden. However, this was the best one, and it could only withstand more than 40 swings in Li Bai's hands. Sir, please take a look at this sword. Xi and Qiji was no longer as proud as before. He wiped the sweat off his forehead, then took out a golden-laid box from an extremely hidden place. He smiled bitterly and said, This Bright Moon sword is the best sword I have here, and it's equivalent to a human sword maiden. Sir, please give it a try. Done. This time, Li Bai swung it over 100 times, performing a complete set of sword techniques, but the Bright Moon sword still showed no signs of breaking. Seeing this, Xi and Qiji could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to go through the formalities to give the sword to Li Bai, he suddenly heard Li Bai shout. A vigorous and elegant sword soared into the sky, piercing through the roof of the armory, turning the huge armory into an open-air stadium in an instant. As the sword soared into the sky, the Bright Moon sword was also broken into two. Chapter 1198. Gone. Really gone. Xi and Qiji looked at the innocent Li Bai with a bitter smile. He pulled his beard and said, Lord Tai Bai, I admit that I was boasting. I don't have a better sword than the Bright Moon sword. Sigh, can I, Li Bai, find a weapon that suits me? Hearing Xi and Qiji's words, Li Bai said bitterly. Seeing Li Bai's expression, Xi and Qiji couldn't help but feel sorry for him. He clenched his teeth and slapped his thigh. It's not that we don't have a better sword, but this sword is different from the sword we use. Different? How can it be different? Hearing Xi and Qiji's words, Li Bai couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. As long as it's a sword, it's the same to buy. This is indeed not an ordinary sword. It's the sword used by those sword-bearers. Xian Chiji said helplessly. The sword used by women like the one in my hand? Li Bai tested the human woman in his hand and nodded. Bai has fought with them before. Their swords are indeed very strange. They can actually transform into human forms. At first, I thought they were monsters, but I didn't expect them to be sword-bearers. Yes, the swords of those sword-bearers are indeed very strange. Until now, we still haven't figured out why these swords can transform into women's forms. However, one thing is for sure. We can't use the swords of these sword-bearers, Xian Chiji said. Why? Aren't they all swords? Why can't we use them? Li Bai asked in confusion. The sword-bearer's sword has a natural sense of rejection towards us. Once we hold the sword-bearer's sword in our hands, we will feel a burning pain in our palms. Moreover, there will be an inexplicable sense of oppression in our hearts, as if someone had placed a large stone in our hearts. If we hold it for a long time, we will feel like vomiting. Then, we will feel dizzy and drowsy. Finally, we will faint. Xian Chiji pulled his beard and shook his head. If the sword-bearers could really be used, then I would have used it long ago. I wouldn't be guarding the entire armory. If that's the case, then this sword-bearer is really an existence that is our natural nemesis. Li Bai sighed in admiration. After thinking for a while, he couldn't help but say, No, if you don't let Bai experience it personally, Bai will feel uncomfortable all over. No, Bai must touch the swords of those sword-bearers. All right, we can understand how you feel. When I first came to this world, I heard about swords and couldn't hold back my curiosity, so I had to experience it. It's good for you to experience it, Tai Bai Gong Gong. In the future, when you meet the sword-bearers of the virtual human, you'll be prepared, Xian Chiji said without hesitation. Very good. I can't wait any longer, Li Bai said excitedly. Hee, I didn't expect Tai Bai Gong to have such a childish side. This is really an eye-opener for me. Xian Chiji couldn't help but laugh when he saw Li Bai's performance. However, because of this, Xian Chiji felt that Li Bai in front of him had become more and more vivid. This was the appearance of a real person, not the thin words in the history textbook. But that place isn't like my armory. I can make a decision with just one word, so I have to register in the hall. Otherwise, I really can't bring Master Tai Bai into that place. Xian Chiji said with some difficulty. It's okay. We have to register sooner or later. Let's go register first, Li Bai said with a smile. The four of them returned to the hall of the stronghold. Unfortunately, the person in charge of registration in the hall still hadn't appeared. The four of them had been waiting there for almost 2 hours. When it was past 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the person in charge of registration, Yuan Ko, slowly walked into the hall. Oh, Henry, what are you doing? You're not at your post during working hours. You made us wait for so long. Seeing a blonde and blue-eyed foreigner, the grumpy Xian Chiji couldn't suppress his anger and scolded the foreigner. What's the hurry? Are you in a hurry to meet God? O. Henry stretched himself lazily and glanced at Xian Chiji with his small eyes. Don't laugh at me. You have Mr. Tang behind you, and I have Mr. Tesla behind me. Anyway, both of them are not here today. You can't do anything to me. You. Xian Chiji was so angry that his hair almost stood on end. Call me again. If you do, I'll leave right now. Who's afraid of you? O. Henry was about to leave, but Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei hurriedly stopped him. After a lot of good words, O. Henry finally calmed down a little. He sat down again, opened the registration software on the computer, and asked Li Bai lazily, Tell me, what's your name? Which era and country? What are your abilities? What's your level? Li Bai, from the Song Dynasty. I can recite poems, drink wine, and play with swords. As for my level, I don't know, Li Bai said grumpily. How can I do that? If I don't know my level, how can I register? Oh. Henry laughed, and then looked at Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei. You too, do you know what level this Li Bai is? This? Nether level? Or meteor level? Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei were at a loss as to what to do, no matter how they looked at it. The person who had broken a sword that was equivalent to a famed sword maiden should be at least a nether grade Yuanko or above. However, they were unable to confirm what his exact rank was. They would have to fight a Yuan-ko of the same rank to find out. Just as the two of them were in deep thought, Li Bai could no longer hold it in and said, "Bai defeated an ancient sword wielder. You can just treat Bai as an ancient sword wielder." "Oh, that's the nether level." Oh, Henry did not hesitate. After hearing Li Bai's words, he immediately registered Li Bai as a nether level. Qin Hui and the others behind Li Bai looked at each other in confusion. This Lord Li Bai was at least a nether level Yuan-ko. How did he become a trash nether level Yuan-ko in the blink of an eye? This O. Henry was also an idiot. Did he not know that a nether level Yuan-ko was a Yuan-ko without any intelligence? For a Yuan-ko like Li Bai to speak so smoothly and logically, he should at least be a dragon level Yuan-ko. In fact, how could O. Henry not know that Li Bai could not be a rat level bandit? However, judging from Li Bai's name and background, this newcomer would definitely become Guan Yu's subordinate. Therefore, O. Henry gave him the rank of rat level. He could take this opportunity to discuss Li Bai and vent his anger for his master, Tesla. "It's fine." Li Bai turned around and asked the three indignant people behind him to calm down. He smiled and said, "I don't know about levels, and I don't care, as long as you can help me find a good sword." "That's right. Since Lord Li Bai has registered, let's set off now." Under Exine Shiji's lead, the four of them began to walk deeper into the stronghold. The place we're going to next has more than 600 virtual human sword maidens, ranging from ancient sword maidens to immortal sword maidens. They're all hidden there. I guarantee that you'll be able to find the sword you like. Exine Shiji explained to Li Bai as they walked. "Mr. Jia Xian, what kind of place are you talking about? Why have we never heard of such a place?" After hearing Exine Shiji's words, Qin Hui and Wang Jing Wei shouted in dissatisfaction before Li Bai could say anything. "Humph, you two traitors. What right do you have to know such important things?" Exine Shiji glared at the two of them disdainfully. The two of them knew that they were in the wrong, so they could only smile and swallow their grievances. "By the way, I heard from these two brothers that sword maidens are the most precious thing to humans. They also have the ability to return to the sword pavilion on their own. Normally, we can only get broken sword maidens or watch them fly away. Why are there so many sword maidens in the stronghold?" Li Bai asked curiously. "I'm not too sure either. After all, I'm not very interested in what happens there." Exine Shiji said, "I only know that a few years ago, there were only a few broken swords there. There were only 3 intact sword maidens. However, a few years ago, more than 600 sword maidens suddenly appeared there. I heard that someone in our martyr's palace stole them. Because the sword maidens can't enter the main hall of the martyr's palace, they were temporarily stored in our stronghold. After all, our stronghold has the most kings and is the safest and most reliable." "I see." Li Bai nodded thoughtfully. As they spoke, they arrived at the place that Exine Shiji mentioned. Li Bai looked up and saw a simple and unadorned monastery standing in front of him. Although it looked like it had weathered the hardships of time, it was still intact. "This is the Glastonbury Monastery," Exine Shiji said with a smile. "I heard that when our stronghold was first established, the Glastonbury Monastery was the only place. However, a few hundred years ago, this place was very lively. After a few hundred years of development, the scope of our stronghold grew larger and larger. The rest of our brothers gradually dispersed and lived in different places. This core area became deserted and was used to store some treasures." "Who is it? What are you doing here?" When Li Bai and the others approached the Glastonbury Monastery, a mysterious voice suddenly came from all directions. It was impossible to figure out where the voice was coming from. "It's me." Hearing this voice, Exine Shiji replied coldly. Immediately, a void door appeared in front of Li Bai and the others. A middle-aged man wearing fur and carrying a large bow jumped out of the void. From this, it could be seen that this person with the bow was at least a U-level Yuan-ko. This U-level Yuan-ko also looked at Exine Shiji coldly. Sparks flew in their eyes, and they looked like they wanted to kill each other. Seeing this, Qin Hui had no choice but to jump out. He hugged the man with the bow and said with a flattering smile, Master Jabi, please don't lower yourself to his level. Didn't our great song fall in your hands? Why are you still holding a grudge against a guy who destroyed our country? It turned out that the man with the bow and arrows was Jabi. He was the most powerful archer in Mongolia and one of Temujin's most trusted generals. Jabi was known as the god of archery. In terms of archery, even Huangzhong was no match for him. Otherwise, Jabi would not have been qualified to be a U-level Yuan Ko. The Mongolians, where Jabi was from, later destroyed the southern Song, where Xian Chiji was from. Since there was a feud between the two, it was only natural that they would stare at each other like mortal enemies. Oomph. Hearing Qin Hui's words, Jabi snorted coldly and stopped staring at Xian Chiji. He asked coldly, "What are you doing here? This is not a place you should be." "Bai is looking for a sword," Li Bai said before Qin Hui could speak. "Looking for a sword?" Jabi squinted at Li Bai, his face full of disbelief. "If you're looking for a sword, go to his armory." "Why are you here?" "I couldn't find a suitable sword in the armory. I heard that there are many good swords hidden in the Glastonbury Monastery, so I came here to see if I could find a suitable weapon for myself," said Rode. You want to use the sword of the sword-bearer as your own weapon? Are you courting death?" Jabi glanced at Li Bai and said to Qin Hui, "Didn't you tell him how dangerous it is to use the sword of the sword-bearer?" "I did, but Lord Li Bai didn't care. He just wanted to give it a try." Qin Hui said, "Get a try?" Jabi walked around Li Bai and asked, "What level are you?" "Mouse level," Li Bai said calmly. "Ha ha." Jabi laughed wildly. Good. Since you're a mouse level, you can give it a try. I won't stop you." "Thank you." Li Bai cupped his hands at Jabi and was about to enter the Glastonbury Monastery. "Wait." Before Li Bai could take a few steps, Jabi stopped him again. Jabi sneered and said, "You can go in, but you can't bring the woman in your hand. Don't think that I can't recognize her. She is not one of us, but a virtual person. P.S. I would like to add an unexpected setting here. Yuan Ko of the Martyr's Palace has always regarded himself as a human, so he naturally thinks of himself as a human. It is impossible for him to refer to the indigenous people of this world as humans. Otherwise, it would be very awkward for Yuan Ko of the Martyr's Palace. Therefore, I have added a setting here. The humans of the Martyr's Palace only refer to themselves as humans, while real humans are called virtual people, which means that they are not real humans. This setting only applies to Yuan Ko of the Martyr's Palace. Yuan Ko of other forces are not affected. It's only natural for her to stay here. Li Bai nodded after hearing Jabi's words, but he immediately shook his head and said, "However, if we really leave this woman here, I'm afraid that when Bai comes out, this woman will no longer be Bai. She will be snatched away by someone else." After saying that, Li Bai looked down and saw a tent protruding out of Jabi's leather pants. He could not help but sneer. "What are you talking about? I'm already doing you a favor by letting you in. Don't you want to repay my kindness?" Jabi said, holding an arrow in his hand as if he was ready to attack at any time. Don't. We are brothers, and we are on the same side. You can't fight." Qin Hui hurriedly stood between the two of them and tried to persuade Li Bai with a bitter smile. "Master Li Bai, it's just a woman. Don't hurt our friendship. Besides, we don't need to sleep with a woman all the time. At most, you can use her for a day, and Master Jabi will use her for a day. You can take a break and recharge your strength. Why do you have to fight? There are many examples of people dying because of women in this world." "All right." Li Bai hesitated for a while and sighed. "All right. I can agree to let him use this woman for a few days, but not now. Her virginity must be Bai's. Bai will only feel safe if he keeps her by his side. Sure, I'm a Mongolian, and Mongolians don't care about virginity. I'll give it to you." Jabi nodded his head and said to Li Bai proudly, "Then bring this woman and come with me. I'd like to see how cowardly you are in front of the swords of those sword-bearers." After saying that, Jabi directly entered Glastonbury Abbey. Li Bai followed him, leaving Qin Hui and the other two standing outside. Since Jabi did not allow them to enter, they were not qualified to do so. "Hey, Master," Li Bai said that he has 3 hobbies, and swords rank first. Now it seems that Master Li Bai was lying. In fact, women are his hobbies, Qin Hui said with a wretched smile. Wang Jingwei and Xian Qiji did not say anything, but they both smiled knowingly at the same time. Chapter 1199. After entering the Glastonbury Monastery, Jeeb led them through a series of winding medieval-style corridors and arrived in front of a large door made of pure copper. Copper was a very precious material in ancient times and modern times. It was obvious how important the thing inside the door was to be made of copper. Wait! Just when Li Bai was about to push the door open, Jeeb suddenly blocked Li Bai's way with one hand. What's wrong? Li Bai looked at the hand in front of him and asked with a displeased expression. I forgot to tell you just now. Let me have a look at this woman's face first. Jebi, I'm also a handsome man in the prairie. Ordinary women are not worthy of me. If she's too ugly, you and this woman can get out of here. Jebi said proudly. Look, Li Bai did not waste time talking to Jeeb. He took a look at the woman in his hand. Jeeb's mouth watered after he saw her face. He exclaimed, she's so beautiful. She's just like the bright moon on the prairie. Even the pearl of our great Han dynasty, Princess Huajing, is not as beautiful as her. All right, since you've seen her, it's time to let Bai in. Li Bai only gave Jeeb a glance before he put the woman down again. No problem. Jeeb rolled his eyes. You going alone. I'll guard this woman. Why? Li Bai looked at Jeeb warily and asked. Don't forget that the woman in your hand is a virtual person with a sword. This hall is full of sword maidens. If this woman wakes up and does something to the sword maidens in the hall and loses them, you'll be the sinners of the martyr's palace. You should be more vigilant, Jeeb said matter-of-factly. In fact, what he said made sense. In other words, he had inadvertently revealed the truth. You make it sound so nice. Bai, I think you want to have sex with this woman first when Bai goes in and throw a broken shoe at me, right? Li Bai said as if he had seen through Jeeb's plan. I don't want to talk nonsense with you anymore. Fine, let's just be honest. A woman's first time was just a membrane. It took a lot of effort to poke it, and it also brought bad luck to her. If it weren't for the fact that I haven't tasted a woman for a few months, I wouldn't even bother to snatch this unlucky thing from you. But this woman is really too beautiful, so beautiful that I can't help it. If you know what's good for you, hand over this woman. I'll return her to you after playing with her for a few days. I promise to keep her alive. Jebi was indeed a Mongolian. He was not good at lying, so he spoke bluntly. What if Bai says no? Li Bai squinted at Jeeb. Then I have no choice but to invite you out so that we can have a good fight. Jebi waved his hand and a void gate appeared beside him. At this moment, Jeeb could push Li Bai into the gate of the void with a gentle push. Is that so? Unfortunately, you won't have the chance. Li Bai smiled and waved his hand. A second void gate appeared beside Li Bai. In the blink of an eye, Li Bai carried the woman into the void gate and disappeared without a trace. He's actually a universe-level expert like me. Upon seeing this scene, Ling, who had been arrogant and ferocious just a moment ago, and Jebi's aura instantly stagnated. Jebi had never expected that this middle-aged man who looked a little down and out was actually a universe-level Yuan Ko like him and had the ability to open void gates. Where did that guy go through the void gate? After being shocked for a while, Jebi began to think about Li Bai's whereabouts. Fortunately, Jebi wasn't stupid and quickly figured it out. This person must have gone through the void gate into the hall. At this thought, Jebi immediately pushed open the gate aggressively. Hey, since we are both universe-level experts, we can talk things over. Don't ruin the harmony in the Martyr's Palace. At most, I'll play with you for a few days, and then you and I will play for a few days. Let's have a friendly conversation. Compared to his previous attitude, Jebi was still a little overbearing, but he wasn't as unquestionable as before. After all, if two universe-level Yuan Ko were to fight here, half of the stronghold would be destroyed in their battle. Therefore, Jebi decided to discuss with Li Bai and see if they could take turns to play for a few days. However, as soon as Jebi finished speaking, he saw a scene that made him dizzy. The woman who had been unconscious in Li Bai's hand was now looking at the sword ladies in the hall with great interest. Meanwhile, Li Bai stood at the door and welcomed Jibi with a big smile. What's going on? Let me help you. Let's catch that woman quickly and don't let her touch the sword ladies here. The confused Jibi thought that the woman had suddenly woken up and escaped Li Bai's control, so he wanted to help Li Bai subdue her. Hey, brother Jibi, since she wants to see it, let her have a look. How about we have a good chat here? Li Bai was still smiling. You guys, Jibi realized that there was something wrong with this Yuan Ko named Li Bai. He rushed to Li Bai's side and was about to catch the woman in the hall. Brother Li Bai, thank you for your hard work. The woman shouted. No problem. Since it's your request, Sister Shirhan, I'll definitely satisfy you. Li Bai laughed and moved to the left, blocking Jibi, who was trying to break out of the encirclement. Yes, the human beauty that Li Bai had carried here and was coveted by several perverts was naturally the protagonist, Gu Xianyuan. You guys are really in cahoots. Jibi yelled. You're so stupid that you didn't realize it until now. Li Bai mocked him without any hesitation. I'm going to kill you. Jibi shouted angrily and started fighting with Li Bai with his bare fists. At the entrance of the hall, the two level Yuan Ko were fighting fiercely. On the other side of the hall, Gu Shirhan was looking at the sword lady in front of her with joy. Her eyes were filled with surprise. It seemed that her plan had succeeded. What's going on? Why are you in there? Where's Miss Gu Shirhan? Let's turn the clock back an hour or two. When it was almost 11 o'clock in the morning, Dragon King Ao Run's mouth was dry from all the talking, and he no longer had the energy to speak. At that moment, the maglev flying car that had been parked on the platform finally opened its door. However, West Sea Dragon King Ao Run was extremely disappointed and confused. There was no sign of Gu Shirhan in the maglev flying car. Only Gu Shirhan's friend, a weak ancient sword wielder, walked out of the maglev flying car. That was why Ao Run had asked that question. The other top experts present, as well as the audience, were also baffled. After waiting for an hour, this person had actually appeared. What the hell is going on? Where's my opponent? Seeing this scene, Long Shijindi also flew down from the sky and asked Lu Shihua. I'm sorry, Miss Shirhan had an accident. Lu Shihua said with a sad look. In fact, Miss Shirhan was also seriously injured yesterday, but she didn't say it. She endured it all night, which led to an attack this morning. She could only temporarily enter the medical cabin, and she hasn't come out yet. Really? Long Shijindi frowned. Why didn't you tell me earlier? You told us to prepare early. It happened suddenly. When I was about to go out this morning, she suddenly fell down. Before she was completely unconscious, Miss Shirhan repeatedly told me not to use the communication device to report the news. It was impolite, and I must carry her medical cabin to explain to His Majesty Long Shijindi. Lu Shihua said with a slight sob. I see. Hearing Lu Shihua's words, Long Shijindi's ugly face suddenly relaxed a lot. That's not right. Ao Run, the Dragon King of the West Sea, couldn't take it anymore. He interjected, If that's the case, why didn't you come out of the maglev flying car to tell us in the beginning? Aren't you just wasting our time? Lu Shihua hesitated for a while and said, It's all because the Dragon King blocked the door and said some nonsense. I was afraid and didn't dare to come out. Ahem. Ao Run quickly coughed a few times, which was a little embarrassing. Since Long Shijindi's opponent is injured and needs treatment, we won't disturb you today. We'll go first. Seeing this scene, Tai Muzhin, who was sitting in the sky, got up directly and was ready to leave. The audience also sighed helplessly and began to pack up their things, ready to leave. Wait, Lu Shihua hurriedly said loudly. The medical cabin shows that Miss Shirhan is just exhausted and lacks rest. She only needs to replenish her physical strength. In an hour at most, the medical cabin can be opened and Miss Shirhan can come out to fight. Just wait for an hour, right? The Dragon Lion Sword Emperor asked. Lu Shihua quickly took out a medical pod from the maglev flying car. Everyone looked through the glass and saw that Gu Shirhan was indeed lying peacefully in the medical pod. Her chest was heaving up and down, and it was obvious that she had fallen into a deep sleep. On the display screen of the medical cabin, it was clearly written that there were only 58 minutes left for the treatment. Well, in that case, I will wait for another hour. Longsure Jindy glanced at the medical cabin and flew directly back to the golden dragon chair in the air. It's only an hour. Let's wait. The Dragon Kings of the Four Seas looked at each other and sat back in their seats. Guan Yu and others did not speak, but they showed their choice with practical actions. This was a shocking battle, and no one present wanted to miss it. If the game really started in an hour, would they run back to Glastonbury now, rest for a few minutes, and then come here again? That was a little too stupid. Time ticked by bit. The peak experts, sitting high up in the sky, remained motionless. Their eyes were fixed on their noses, and their noses were focused on their hearts, looking like experts. However, a small portion of the audience had already dispersed. Many of them had their own things to do and did not have the time to wait for another hour. The audience in front of the TV was even more straightforward. They changed the channel directly. They were not interested in watching an hour of TV commercials. As a result, the live broadcast, which had a ratings of more than 80%, fell to less than 4% in an instant. However, when it was close to 12 noon, the ratings slowly rose again, reaching more than 70%. When the bell rang at 12 noon, the experts sitting high in the air finally put down their airs and looked at the medical cabin on the platform expectantly. However, the medical cabin did not move. What's going on? Why is there still more than an hour? Temujin's eyes were sharp. He directly saw the small words displayed on the medical cabin in the air hundreds of meters away. As a result, Temujin was surprised to find that the treatment time shown on the medical cabin had changed to 1 hour and 7 minutes. Now, after an hour, the treatment time had not been shortened, but increased by 9 minutes. Wasn't this strange? Let me see. Lu Shihua quickly moved to the side of the medical cabin and then quickly reported to Longsure Jindi. Your Majesty, the medical record in the medical cabin said that Miss Shurhan's muscle tissue was wrong. Miss Shurhan's muscles are far beyond the normal female muscles, so the original judgment of the treatment time was wrong. Now is the corrected time. Oh, the Dragon Lion Sword Emperor didn't say anything else. There was nothing strange about this. The estimated treatment time of the medical pod was just like the weather forecast on a TV station. It was never 100% accurate. Occasionally, it was very normal to want to predict 1 or 2 hours more, or 1 or 2 hours less. There was nothing strange about it. Damn it, why do we have to wait for more than an hour? Temujin cursed. If Temujin doesn't want to wait, you can leave. Longsure, will give you a ride. Longsure Jindi said to Temujin with half-open eyes. His tone was eager for Temujin to leave as soon as possible. Humph, I won't leave. I want to see the strength of this woman with my own eyes. Temujin said. In this way, after another hour, the ratings dropped from 70% to 3%, and then rose from 3% to 60%. When it was 1:10 in the afternoon, the treatment time of the medical cabin gradually reached 0. Suddenly, the time changed to 1 hour and 32 minutes. At this time, all the top experts were paying attention to the time change on the medical cabin when the treatment time was about to end. They were a little worried about whether the treatment time would change again. As a result, the change really happened. This was really annoying. What's going on this time? Temujin asked angrily. Lu Shihua quickly operated the medical cabin, then said with a wry smile, just now the medical cabin carried out a second scan after the treatment and found that there is a hidden injury in the bone that was not discovered. This hidden injury must be treated. Oh, the Dragon Lion Sword Emperor uttered an oh, and then said indifferently, since we still have an hour and a half, let's eat first. Longsure Jindi waved his hand, and a table of delicious food was placed in the air. Well, this old man has long been tired of eating the delicious food of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. It's just the right time to taste the food of you humans. The Dragon Kings of the Four Seas, who were impatient, sat directly at the table. Impatiently, they continued to eat to pass the time. Damn it, eat. Eat. Temujin, Guan Yu, and Tesla all smiled bitterly and sat down at the table together. And so, an extremely rare scene in history appeared. 8 of the world's top experts, and they belonged to three different camps. The two camps usually fought each other to the death and wanted nothing more than to completely annihilate each other. But now, they were sitting at the same table and eating harmoniously. This scene could be said to be a scene that was rarely seen throughout the ages. Immediately, the reporters and the media pointed their cameras at the banquet in the sky. Just the photos of the banquet were enough to make up for the past few hours of their bitter wait. Chapter 1200. These top experts did not have anything else in common, but they all had one thing in common, and that was they were all big eaters. A table of delicious food that was usually enough for 20 people to eat was eaten clean by these people in less than 5 minutes. It couldn't be helped. To some extent, strength and appetite were directly proportional. With a wave of long Sher Jindi's big sleeve, the leftovers on the table disappeared, and with another wave, a new table of delicious food appeared. In this way, a full 9 tables of wine and dishes were replaced, and the crowd barely looked full. They no longer wolfed down their food, but slowly ate and drank. I say, Long Sher, your dimensional pocket is well prepared. You've actually prepared 9 tables of dishes. Do you usually eat 9 tables of dishes? After eating to his heart's content, Temujin rudely wiped his beard with a tablecloth and asked somewhat strangely. When everyone heard this, they felt that it was indeed a little strange. No one would prepare so many delicious dishes in their dimensional pocket. It felt as if Long Sher Jindi had already known that they would come. What are you looking at me for? Do you really think I am a fool? Long Sher Jindi sneered. Yesterday, Lord Ao Run and Lord Guan Yu also secretly hid to the side to watch the fight. If I hadn't guessed that you would be interested in coming to meddle, I'm afraid that my London would have been destroyed in your hands. Ha! Everyone smiled awkwardly. It seemed that this was indeed the case. There's still something wrong. Tesla narrowed his eyes. It stands to reason that this fight, Long Sher, will be over in 10 minutes at most. Long Sher, it seems that you don't need to prepare this table of dishes at all. Did you think in advance that you would fight with her for more than 2 hours? The wine glass in Long Sher Jindi's hand swayed a bit, and half of the wine in the glass spilled out. After that, the Dragon Lion Sword Emperor quietly finished the wine that he had prepared and left the table. He returned to his throne and didn't say anything else. Not good. I didn't expect Long Sher Jindi himself to think that he would fight with that woman for more than 2 hours. Doesn't this mean that the woman can really fight evenly with an Emperor Sword-level swordsman for a long time? Once such a woman becomes an immortal sword-level swordsman, it would be terrible. Long Sher Jindi's reaction suddenly made the other Yuan Kos at the table turn pale with fright. This detail of Long Sher Jindi fully revealed the horror of his opponent, which also made these Yuan Kos curious about the woman lying in the medical pod. They secretly decided that this time they must understand the ability of that woman. When the whole table was removed, it was already 2:40 in the afternoon. As a result, something unexpected happened again. The treatment time in the medical pod changed again, and the treatment countdown increased again. This time, it increased by 2 hours, and the treatment could only be completed after 4:40. Your Majesty, this time, Lu Shihua smiled bitterly and prepared to report the change in the medical pod. Unexpectedly, Long Sher Jindi waved his hand and said, "Forget it. I'm not interested in listening. I'll wait for 2 more hours." After Long Sher Jindi finished speaking, he took out a game console from his dimensional pocket and held it in his hand. Long Sher Jindi actually began to play the game directly. F***CK. It seems that His Majesty has also been driven mad by this woman. Otherwise, he would not play games in public. Seeing this scene, the audience in London said with a wry smile. At the same time, they picked up their personal terminals and took pictures of Long Sher Jindi. Jindi playing a game console. Such a picture, in terms of preciousness, was not necessarily less precious than a picture of 8 top experts eating together. Strange. Why did His Majesty put on the helmet and play Sword Maiden online? Isn't this much more fun than any old-fashioned game console? A spectator saw this scene and suddenly asked in puzzlement, "Are you stupid? If he put on the helmet and entered the game, wouldn't he know nothing about the outside world? What if he was sneak attacked by those Yuan-Kos? So His Majesty can only play the game console. A spectator next to him explained, F***CK. I'm not serving you anymore. Temujin once again wanted to get up and leave, but he was held back by Guan Yu, who was next to him. Guan Yu said coldly, You can leave, but you have wasted more than 3 hours of waiting. F***CK. Temujin was so angry that he lashed his whip directly into the sea. As a result, a huge wave tens of meters high was set off on the sea, submerging the entire coast, and the spectators who stayed on the shore were also drenched. If it were not for the timely rescue of the surrounding swordsmen, it was estimated that some of the spectators would have died directly under Temujin's wave. With this big wave, Temujin also vented the anger in his heart. After shouting at the shore, Give me Longshire's thing too, he sat back down. The swordsman did not dare to be negligent. Without saying a word, someone immediately rushed over with a brand new game console. This person was also clever. He directly brought 7 game consoles, regardless of whether these top Yuan-Kos had the childlike innocence of playing games. The 7 top Yuan-Kos took the game console hesitantly. Except for Temujin, the others were somewhat resistant at first. But because the process of waiting was too boring, these top Yuan-Kos also hesitantly began to play. As the game progressed, all kinds of strange expressions appeared on their faces. After 2 hours had passed, these top Yuan-Kos were still not satisfied. Even after 2 hours had passed, these top bandits were still not satisfied. They wished that they could wait a little longer so that they could have more fun. At this time, the countdown timer on the medical bay had reached about 1 minute left. Everyone stared at the timer in unison, and they had an inexplicable bad feeling in their hearts. Do we have to wait again this time? Although the game console is quite fun, it's going to be dark if we wait any longer. In the end, just as they feared when there were only a few seconds left, the countdown once again jumped, and this time it jumped for a full 3 hours. F***CK. I don't want to watch anymore. I will kill you first. Temujin could not stand it any longer. The whip in his hand directly rolled towards a medical bay on the platform. No! Longshire Jindi immediately tried to stop Temujin's whip, but Guan Yu, in the blink of an eye, shuttled through the void and stopped Longshire Jindi's sword mistress. It seemed that this warrior saint had had enough and was determined to kill Gu Shirhan. It's over. When the few remaining spectators saw Gu Shirhan's medical bay split in half by Temujin's horsewhip, they immediately wailed. This was the most powerful spirit sword-level swordsman in human history. Could it be that she died under Temujin's whip? But faintly, there was a trace of pleasure in the hearts of these spectators. F***CK. This woman who had made them waste most of their lives was finally dead. This was really cool. No. Temujin, who had just split Gu Shirhan's medical bay in half, suddenly shouted. With a circle of his whip in the sea, he rolled the 2 broken corpses in front of him. After taking a look, his face suddenly changed. He immediately threw the 2 corpses in front of Longshire Jindi and shouted, Longshire Jindi, you dare to play with us? What's going on? The Dragon Kings of the 4 Seas immediately came over. After taking a look, they, like Temujin, were so angry that their dragon horns became crooked and they shouted, Longshire Jindi, what the hell is going on? Don't tell us that you were also deceived by this woman. What do you mean deceived? Longshire Jindi's performance was extremely calm, and he said indifferently, Humph, this is not a woman's corpse. It's clearly 2 pieces of silicone gel. You actually dare to play with us with silicone gel dolls. Temujin rushed over like the wind. The camera quickly focused on the 2 parts of the body suspended in the air. People found that the 2 parts of the body looked exactly the same as Gu Shirhan's, but they were solid. There were no bones or internal organs at all. What kind of person was this? It was clearly a doll made of silicone gel. Retreat. In the sky, Longshire Jindi saw that things could not be concealed any longer. He immediately shouted, and immediately countless swordsmen rushed out from all directions. But these swordsmen did not attack the Yuan Ko, but covered the audience and reporters who were still on the shore at this time. It could be seen that this retreat had been prepared for a long time. In just a flash, the retreat was carried out in an orderly manner. Don't let these humans go. The Yuan Ko of the Martyr's Palace instinctively wanted to control some humans, or kill them to vent his anger, or use them to threaten Long Jindi. But Long Jindi was already prepared and directly blocked it. The two sides fought for a while in the air. Long Jindi was certainly not a match for the 3 flood-level Yuan Ko, but it was not a problem for him to entangle them. When Guan Yu got rid of the entanglement and wanted to attack, all the humans had safely retreated into the dimensional wall. Even if these flood-level Yuan Ko had great ability, they would not be able to destroy this super-dimensional wall in a few months. Long Shi, you villain, what the hell are you planning? Guan Yu was helpless and could only question the only human beside him, Long Jindi. I don't have any idea. I just miss everyone and hope that we can get together here and have a meal. Long Jindi said lightly. Not good. This is a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain. I'm afraid our stronghold is in danger. Let's go. Temujin was, after all, an emperor. Although he did not know what the real intention of Long Jindi was, he was sure that his stronghold was empty at this time, and the human's goal was likely to be to sneak attack his stronghold. That's right, let's go. When the Yuan Ko of the Martyr's Palace heard Temujin's words, he directly broke away from the entanglement with Long Jindi and began to quickly retreat in the direction of the Glastonbury stronghold. But what the 3 Yuan Ko never expected was that before they could fly more than 10 kilometers away, they were blocked by an invisible wall. Whether they wanted to fly over or pass through the Void Gate, these flood-level Yuan Ko could never leave the shackles of this wall. This is the dimensional wall. There's a second dimensional wall system here. In the end, they were the Yuan bandits who had fought against the humans for hundreds of years. They immediately recognized that the dimensional barrier blocking their way was the human race's dimensional barrier. Unless one used brute force to break it, or used the human's own quantum teleportation array, it was impossible to pass through it. No Yuan bandit in the world could directly pass through the human race's dimensional barrier. Although London's super-dimensional wall system was large, its scope was fixed. In the past hundreds of years of struggle, Yuan Ko of the Martyr's Palace had a clear understanding of the size and scope of London's super-dimensional wall system. They were sure that the entire battlefield was not within London's super-dimensional wall system. There was only one explanation for that. The Londoners had set up a second, much smaller dimensional wall system here. Additionally, when they arrived in the morning, the smaller dimensional wall system was still shut down. It was only activated after they arrived that it was activated. It took about 10 minutes to activate a small dimensional wall system, during which it would be accompanied by a lot of strange movements. Under normal circumstances, they would be able to discover these strange movements and escape from the nearby area. They didn't know if the Dragon Lion Sword Emperor had secretly ordered someone to activate the miniature dimensional wall system while everyone was eating or playing video games. As a result, they didn't notice the strange movements that were very obvious. Long Shi, what the hell do you want to do? Do you want to kill the 3 of us? Speaking up to this point, Guan Yu and the other 2 felt a chill on their necks. This Long Jindi had deliberately not set up this inescapable net. Apart from wanting to kill the 3 of them, what other purpose did he have? Moreover, Guan Yu and the other 2 looked at the Dragon Kings of the 4 Seas. Recalling that the Dragon King of the West Sea, Ao Run, had just said that he wanted to fight side by side with humans, their hearts became even more terrified. Could it be that the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas had already turned to the side of humans in advance? They had not appeared here to watch the battle, but had premeditated with Long Jindi in advance, preparing to join hands and kill the 3 of them? If the Dragon Kings of the 4 Seas were really working with Long Jindi, thinking of this, Guan Yu and the other 2 did not dare to continue thinking about it. It was very likely that they would all die inside this dimensional wall system. Don't misunderstand. We are not in cahoots with Long Jindi. We were also deceived. Seeing the puzzled look in the eyes of Guan Yu and the other two, the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas immediately said in unison. Hearing the words of the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas, Guan Yu and the other two suddenly felt relieved. At this time, they had already become turtles in a jar. If the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas were really conspiring with humans, then there was no need to continue acting. They could just directly take action. It seemed that the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas were indeed kept in the dark, just like them. Longsure Jindi, what do you want to do? Just say it. Don't beat around the bush. Are you still Jindi or not? Temujin asked loudly. He could not understand. If the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas were not conspiring with humans, then what was their purpose? As I said, I just want to ask you to stay here a little longer. After Longsure Jindi finished speaking, he once again bowed to the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas and said, "Today's matter was really helpless. I did not want to involve the four Dragon Kings, but the Dragon Kings came uninvited. Today's mistake was completely unintentional, and I have no intention of targeting the four Dragon Kings. After this matter is over, this junior will apologize to the four Dragon Kings." The Dragon Kings of the Four Seas smiled bitterly at the same time. It turned out that they were the unlucky ones who had been caught in the crossfire, and it was their own fault. What else could they say? With that, Longsure Jindi waved his hand and flew directly out of the small dimensional wall. Then, countless sword-bearers rushed out of the city of London, put their arms on the collector near the dimensional wall, and poured the sword essence in their bodies into the small dimensional wall. I just thought that the reason why they trapped us was to take the opportunity to send a large army to attack our stronghold. But now it seems that's not the case. Seeing the appearance of these sword-bearers who had been infused with sword essence, Temujin breathed a sigh of relief. With so many sword-bearers used to infuse sword essence into the small dimensional wall, it seemed that the humans had no other forces to attack their stronghold. But in this case, what was the real purpose of these humans? Temujin really could not figure out. Chapter 1201. What's your purpose? Jabi asked the same question on the other side. Jabi was having a hard time being pestered by Li Bai. He had the urge to vomit blood. As an archer, he could only display his true combat power in a vast space. However, once the battlefield was confined to this small monastery, Jabi's bow could not be used to its full potential no matter how strong he was. He could only let Li Bai drag him to the door and watch as Gu Xianyuan kept putting the sword ladies that were placed in the hall into her dimensional pocket. Can't you tell? Of course, we're taking back what belongs to us humans. Gu Xianyuan squinted. He saw a sword maiden with 4 wings. It was obviously the 4-winged seraphim sword that Lu Shihuan needed. Gu Xianyuan kept the sword maiden into his dimensional pocket. He had accomplished one of his goals in coming to London. Damn it, you traitor. Why are you helping these virtual humans? Jabi was furious. He tried to rush past Li Bai several times, but Li Bai stuck to him like a glue. Even when Jabi opened the gate of the void, Li Bai would still chase after him. He did not give Jabi any chance to get close to Gu Xianyuan. Jabi questioned Li Bai angrily. What do you mean by virtual humans? I'm a human. Of course, I'm on the side of humans. What's so strange about that? Li Bai said calmly. We're humans too. We're the real humans. These virtual humans deserve to be expelled. This world should be ours. Jabi said loudly. You're a bandit. Only a bandit would get rid of their master. Li Bai scolded. That's right. So what if we're bandits? Aren't you an outsider? Aren't you a bandit? Jabi scolded. It's our destiny to expel these virtual humans. We're just carrying out the law of the universe. If we don't get rid of the humans, we'll be the ones getting rid of them. What destiny? What law? I don't know anything about that. Li Bai pushed Jabi back again. This world is so big. Why can't we live in harmony with the original humans? We're all compatriots of the same origin. Why do we have to fight each other to the death? Humph! This is the mark that is engraved in our blood. We outsiders must kill these virtual people. This is our destiny. Don't you understand? Don't you have the desire to kill when you see these hollow humans? Jeeb asked. Bai doesn't. Li Bai raised his eyebrows. Bai seems to be a free man. What? You're a free man? Jabi's brows twitched, and he said in horror, "The Glastonbury stronghold has never provoked the Freedom Metropolis. Why are you getting involved in this matter? You're even siding with the Hollow Man? Could it be that the Freedom Metropolis has completely changed its stance and is siding with the Hollow Man? I don't know what Freedom City is. Don't spout nonsense." Li Bai frowned. "You're the one who's spouting nonsense. Which free man in the world isn't from a free city? Which free man in the world hasn't been enlightened by those busybodies in the free metropolis?" Jabi's face was filled with disbelief. "I really isn't from Free City. I've only been in this world for less than 10 days. I've never seen anyone from Free City. I'm not interested in joining a free city either," Li Bai repeated. "What a joke. How can you pull out the destiny in your body without someone from a free city? Don't tell me you don't have a destiny in your body since you came to this world." Jabi said, "P.S. A reader told the author that Yuan Ko calls the filth in his body filth, which is very unscientific. Yuan Ko should have another name for filth. The author thinks it makes sense. Therefore, from now on, Yuan Ko calls the filth in his body filth. Only those who are sober and free will call it filth. After all, this book was designed from scratch, so there are many unscientific parts. It's unrealistic to change it from beginning to end, so the author can only add some settings at the last minute. If there's a chance to republish it in the future, the author will revise the entire book. Many settings and bugs will be fixed too. I'm sorry. Just pretend you don't have it," Li Bai said. "Liar." Jabi scolded loudly, then started a tangle with Li Bai again. On the other side, Gu Xianyuan had already collected all the sword ladies in the hall into her dimension. However, what made Gu Xianyuan a little anxious was that she didn't find any trace of the broken sword in this hall. This broken sword was the reason why Gu Xianyuan went through so much trouble to come to this stronghold. Only by finding the broken sword of the extinguished immortal sword could Gu Xianyuan become a real spirit sword wielder. At this time, there was not much golden blood left in Gu Xuanyuan's body. According to the estimation of Xianyuan's sword, in 2 days at most, Gu Xianyuan would turn back into Gahan. If Gu Xianyuan still couldn't become a spirit sword wielder at that time, then the only ending that awaited Gu Xianyuan was the shattering of her body. Let me ask you, where are the broken swords here? Where did the broken swords here go? Gu Xuanyuan's vision was very sharp. After scanning a few times, she determined that there was no broken sword in this hall. As for the compartment or the secret room, Gu Xianyuan also used her sword chi to check and found that all the walls were solid. There was no possibility of there being a secret room. In other words, the broken sword of the extinguished immortal sword was not in this mystic sect. Humph, a slut like you is not qualified to talk to me. Jabi looked at Gu Xianyuan with an extremely disdainful gaze. He felt that if Li Bai didn't stop him, he would have already killed this damn woman. This woman was completely a slut who relied on men. Jabi, didn't put this kind of woman in his eyes at all. Gu Xianyuan wasn't angry when she heard this. She looked around the hall and slowly said, "If you don't tell me, I will destroy this hall and even the entire mystic sect." You. Jabi's face changed. Gu Xuanyuan's words seemed to have poked his Achilles heel. With the strength of you and Li Bai, if you fought with all your strength, this hall would have been destroyed long ago. However, you have been suppressing your strength, not daring to vent any of your attacks on the surrounding walls. You don't even dare to destroy a table or a chair in this hall. It seems that this hall is very important to you. What do you think if I destroy it?" After Gu Xianyuan finished speaking, the tip of the extinguished immortal sword spat out a stream of sword chi. Although Jabi was far away from this sword chi, he could still feel the power of this sword chi. He had no doubt that once this sword chi was vented in the hall, the entire hall would be turned into powder in an instant. You really are a slut who only knows how to use these tricks to threaten others. Do you dare to fight me? If you defeat me, I will tell you. Jabi roared angrily. It seemed that this hall was indeed his Achilles heel. However, Jabi was not willing to be threatened like this, so he angrily demanded to fight Gu Xianyuan, although he felt that Gu Xianyuan didn't have the courage to fight him. "If I defeat you, you will tell me where the broken sword is, right?" Zhibi thought that Gu Xianyuan would deliberately avoid his provocation, but he did not expect her to ask him in such a way, as if she was not afraid of fighting him at all. That's right, I, Zhibi, am a man from the grassland, and men from the grassland never lie. If you can really defeat me, I will not hide it. Otherwise, you can just destroy it. It's just a thought for me. If it's destroyed, then so be it. It will allow me, Zhibi, to completely break free from the past, Zhibi said loudly. At the same time, he began to think about how he would kill this slut Gu Xianyuan in a second if she really agreed to fight him. All right, it's a deal. Gu Xianyuan nodded. We can't fight here. Let's fight outside, Zhibi quickly said. Sure. Master Li Bai, please let him out. Gu Xianyuan turned to Li Bai and said, as long as you are happy. Li Bai withdrew his sword and gave up on fighting Zhibi. Zhibi angrily walked out of the door, followed by Li Bai and Gu Xianyuan. The three of them ran out of the monastery. Master Li Bai, how's it going? Did you find a suitable weapon? Xi and Qiji immediately ran up to Li Bai and asked. However, halfway through, he noticed that Zhibi's expression was not right. It was as if he was about to kill someone. Meanwhile, the woman that Li Bai had grabbed earlier walked out of the monastery on her own. She was no longer under Li Bai's control. What's going on? Seeing this scene, Xi and Qiji asked in confusion. I think it's because they couldn't divide the loot equally. That's why both of them are angry. After all, this woman is too beautiful, Qin Hui said enviously. It was the first time that he had seen Gu Xuanyuan's face clearly. He thought that Zhibi's expression was because he was fighting with Li Bai over the woman. Qin Hui had long gotten used to it. Let's fight. When they were about 2 kilometers away from the monastery, Zhibi took out his golden longbow from his back and pointed it at Li Bai and Gu Xianyuan. What? Are they really going to fight? Xi and Qiji and the other two were shocked when they saw this scene. They quickly went up to Li Bai and advised him that they were all on the same side. There was no need to fight with weapons. I won't fight with him for nothing. Don't worry. Li Bai smiled and pulled Xi and Qiji and the other two away, leaving the battlefield to Gu Xianyuan. What's going on? Xi and Qiji and the other two were still confused. They had no idea what was going on. Zhib did not explain anything to them. Instead, he spoke with the weapon in his hand. He quickly pulled his longbow 3 times in a row with one hand, and 3 golden arrows of qi shot out of thin air toward Gu Xianyuan. What? Zhibi's opponent is this woman? At this moment, Xi and Qiji and the other two realized that the other party in this battle was not Li Bai, but the woman that Li Bai had brought with him. What a powerful golden arrow. This woman is dead meat. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei could not help but shrink their heads when they saw the 3 arrows shot by Zhibi. They felt fear from the bottom of their hearts. Although the two of them were very intelligent, they were not Yuan Ko's combat power. Their real combat power was even weaker than that of a Soul Realm Yuan Ko. If any of the 3 arrows were to hit them, they would die on the spot. There was no way they could survive. Therefore, they thought that Gu Xianyuan was dead meat as well. But the truth was always unexpected. Gu Xianyuan lightly said, boring. The exterminating immortal sword in her hand lightly moved. The 3 golden arrow qis were directly dispersed by Gu Xianyuan. Not even a single strand of Gu Xuanyuan's hair was injured. I didn't expect you to be so capable, but it's not surprising. How a useless person dare to come here and ask for a beating. Zhibi cursed. He pulled the golden bow in his hand to its fullest extent and loosened his fingers. Thousands of arrow qis shot out of the bow, all of them targeting Gu Xianyuan. Zhibi even yelled, T6, why don't you block these thousands of arrow qis if you're so capable? I told you, it's really boring. Gu Xianyuan had played this kind of game many times on the platform. Those sword bearers tried their best, but they could not break the fragile flagpole with their sword qi, let alone hit Gu Xuanyuan's body. Gu Xianyuan only used one move. 9 swords of mysterious heaven sword spring directly blocked all the arrow qi. Except for some sword essence, there was no other consumption. You are actually so powerful. At this time, Zhibi realized that he might have underestimated his opponent. Don't say that I'm bullying you. Use your most powerful skill. I'll let you shoot 3 arrows. After 3 arrows, I'll take your dog life. Gu Xianyuan said indifferently. What a powerful virtual person. She can actually block Zhe Bi's golden arrow chi. She is at least a human spirit level sword bearer. Sir Li Bai, how did you defeat such a powerful sword bearer? After witnessing the battle between Gu Xianyuan and Zhe Bi, Xian Qiji touched the sweat on his forehead and asked Li Bai curiously, how could Bai have the ability to defeat her? She was captured by Bai willingly. Li Bai said with a smile, what? Xian Qiji and the other two were stunned at the same time, and then they began to retreat involuntarily. They stopped when they were 100 meters away from Li Bai and looked at Li Bai with vigilance. At this time, they realized that Li Bai might not be their accomplice. Don't worry, your passion and respect for Bai came from the bottom of your hearts, and you sincerely want to be friends with Bai. Bai won't fight with his friends, and he won't hurt his friends. Li Bai looked at the 3 vigilant people and said with a wry smile, Bai took the liberty to come here today to help her friends. Bai will not kill anyone in this stronghold. Miss Shirhan is a human, and so are you. We are all human beings, so Bai will not fight with her own kind. Li Bai's words were powerful, and Xian Qiji and the other 2 were skeptical. The 2 sides were in a deadlock for a while. On the other side, the battle between Gu Xianyuan and Zhe Bi was at its most intense. After Zhe Bi confirmed that an ordinary golden arrow could not cause any harm to Gu Xianyuan, he could only acquiesce to Gu Xuanyuan's words. I've always heard Shui Rengu boast about how he can conquer a mountain with 3 arrows. Well, today Zhe Bi will shoot you, bitch, to death with 3 arrows. I'll let you know why Zhe Bi is called Zhe Bi. After saying this, Zhe Bi pulled out a golden arrow from his waist out of thin air. The color of this arrow was exactly the same as the golden longbow in Zhe Bi's hand, and the material seemed to be exactly the same. It seemed that this golden arrow was the real arrow of Zhe Bi's golden longbow. This was also the first time that Zhe Bi used a real arrow in a battle, so it must be extremely powerful. This arrow is called the fine gold arrow. One fine gold arrow can only be refined with a ton of gold. It's perfect to shoot you with it today. While speaking, Zhe Bi slowly drew the bow and arrow, and the sharp tip of the sword was aimed at Gu Xuanyuan's indifferent face. Chapter 1202. Interesting, but it's a little weak. The fine gold arrow that had just been shot out was now in Gu Xuanyuan's hand. In the face of the powerful fine gold arrow, Gu Xianyuan did not panic. She blocked the fine gold arrow with the blade of the Zhuxian sword. In the end, the fine gold arrow that had lost all its power was directly held in Gu Xuanyuan's hand. However, if one looked closely at Gu Xianyuan, they would find that her left hand that was holding the sword was trembling slightly. Obviously, the power of this arrow was not harmless to Gu Xianyuan. There were not many things in the world that could make Gu Xuanyuan's hand tremble. You forced me to do this, bitch. Seeing that his precious fine gold arrow was held in the hand of his opponent, Zhe Bi was so angry that his whole body was trembling. He gritted his teeth and pulled out a long arrow from his waist. However, this arrow was different from the previous fine gold arrow. Although this arrow was in the shape of an arrow, it did not have a physical body. Instead, it was a flame burning in the air. The flame could actually maintain the shape of the arrow in the air for a long time. This alone showed that this arrow was extraordinary. My goodness, Zhe Bi really put in a lot of effort this time. He even took out this Tai arrow. Seeing this arrow made of flame, Xian Qiji said with a face full of amazement. Tai arrow? It said that when the Eastern Emperor Tai fell, the blood essence between his eyebrows transformed into a flaming arrow. Hearing Xian Qiji's words, Qin Hui seemed to have recalled something, and a look of horror appeared on his face. Hey, what are you talking about? What exactly is this Tai arrow? A voice suddenly sounded among the 3 of them. They turned their heads and saw that it was Li Bai. The 3 of them suddenly felt a chill and shut their mouths. Hey, that's why we say that we are in different positions, but we are all brothers. Could it be that you were all hypocritical just now? Li Bai said with a whimper. F*CK, You're the only one who's hypocritical from the beginning. We're all fools who've been deceived by you." The three of them had their own reasons for cursing Li Bai. But since Li Bai had said so, and they truly admired Li Bai, they hesitated for a while, then explained, according to the legend, back in the prehistorical era, when East Emperor Tai died in a battle, he made an arrow out of the spot between his eyebrows and launched a sneak attack at Zhu Wu and Zhu Rong. Zhu Rong didn't notice it and was shot through his temple. He died together with East Emperor Tai, becoming the first Zhu Wu to die in a battle. After that drop of blood killed Zhu Wu and Zhu Rong, there was still a lot of power left in that drop of blood. Added with Zhu Wu's blood in Zhu Rong's body, it became an arrow completely made of fire. This arrow contained the power of East Emperor Tai and Zhu Wu and Zhu Rong, two prehistorical level Yuan Ko. You can imagine how terrifying it is. Xian Qiji explained with a lingering fear. Later, this arrow fell into the hands of Temujin, who passed it on to Zhibi, and it became Zhibi's most precious treasure. I heard that except for the battle 300 years ago, Zhibi had never taken out this arrow. This is the first time we've seen it. That's a really good arrow. Hearing Xian Qiji's explanation, Li Bai praised sincerely. Why aren't you worried about your girlfriend? The power of this arrow is extraordinary. Your girlfriend might die under this arrow. Xian Qiji said as he rolled his eyes. Life and death are decreed by fate. This is a fair duel. Bai has nothing to worry about. Li Bai didn't look worried at all. I really don't understand the relationship between you two. Xian Qiji murmured in a low voice. Open. Zhibi put the bow on the shelf and pulled the golden bow to the extreme with both hands. The golden bow was almost pulled into the shape of a full moon under the great force. At the same time, Zhibi's forehead was instantly covered in sweat. It was not ordinary sweat, but blood-red sweat, or rather, it was not sweat, but Zhibi's blood. Go! Zhibi's hands suddenly loosened, and he fell to the ground like a puppet that had lost its soul. In order to shoot this Tai arrow, Zhibi had consumed almost all of his strength. This woman is dead. Staring at the Tai arrow, Zhibi gnashed his teeth and said, he didn't believe that anyone could survive this terrifying Tai arrow. Good arrow. When the High One arrow was shot out, Gu Xianyuan let out a heartfelt sigh of admiration. However, Gu Xuanyuan's expression changed in an instant, before turning back to normal and saying, however, it is impossible to kill me, Gu Han, with just a single arrow. Gu Xianyuan stepped back with her left foot, and her whole body instantly tensed up, holding the immortal slaying sword vertically in front of her. Gu Xuanyuan's eyes and the sword seemed to condense into a straight line, and the other end of the line was facing the arrow of the Tai arrow. Heaven-splitting chaos. Heaven-splitting chaos was the best way to deal with the Tai arrow, which contained the power of creatures born from the primeval world. Gu Xianyuan and Zhibi completed their actions in the blink of an eye. What followed was the collision between the two forces. In less than 0.1 seconds, the Tai arrow collided with the immortal slaying sword, and the sky full of flames instantly surrounded Gu Xianyuan. In the blink of an eye, Gu Xianyuan became a fireball dumpling. So hot, so hot. Apart from Li Bai, Xian Qiji and the other two hurriedly retreated a few hundred steps due to the terrifying heat wave and retreated a distance of a few hundred meters. It should be known that they were originally a kilometer away from the battlefield, and it was reasonable to say that the terrifying flames should not have been able to burn them. However, these powerful Yuan Ko retreated continuously because of the heat. When the flames gradually subsided, their clothes became scorched black, which showed how high the temperature was just now. Xian Qiji and the other two who were a kilometer away were already like this, so one could imagine how hot Gu Xianyuan, who was in the center of the flames, was. It should be known that Gu Xianyuan was currently an incomplete sword wielder and could not use his personal shield. His body was in a state of no protection, and if he was burned by this terrifying flame, he would probably turn into a pile of ashes. Is Gu Xianyuan dead? Apart from Li Bai, this question popped up in everyone's mind. However, The answer to this question was soon answered. The flames of the Tai arrow came and went quickly. After the flames gradually dissipated, a body appeared in front of everyone. Pure white and crystal clear skin, a well-proportioned and tall figure, slender and straight legs, a head of soft long hair that covered her entire buttocks, a plump and beautiful face. Each of these characteristics could only be possessed by a top beauty. At this time, all these characteristics were completely gathered on this person. The eyes of the people around her were glued to her, and their saliva instantly flowed to the ground. Even her opponent, Jabi, and her brother and friend, Li Bai, were no exception. No wonder Li Bai and Jabi fought for this woman. If this is my woman, even if I have to risk my life, I will protect her. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei thought in a daze. Bai and Miss Shirhan have such a good relationship. If Bai pursues Miss Shirhan, will Miss Shirhan agree to be with Bai Chunxiao for a while? After all, Bai is so handsome and has done a lot for Miss Shirhan. Miss Shirhan should give Bai Chunxiao face. Li Bai also thought in a daze. The great poet from ancient times to the present had instantly turned into a crazy man. Damn it, Gu Xuanyuan's face turned red. He was a man. How could he stand such a hot gaze from other men? The dimensional pocket flashed, and a new set of clothes appeared on Gu Xuanyuan's body, covering up the spring scenery once again. What a pity! What a pity! If only I could look at it a few more times. Seeing Gu Xianyuan put on his clothes again, everyone sighed in unison. The time of the whole scene, just now, was less than 0.5 seconds. It was too short. It was not fun to look at it. However, when Gu Xianyuan put on his clothes, everyone also regained their senses and immediately became extremely surprised. They couldn't understand why Gu Xuanyuan's body was not injured at all. Since Gu Xuanyuan's jade body was exposed, it meant that Gu Xuanyuan's clothes had been burned to ashes. At the same time, it also meant that Gu Xuanyuan's personal shield had been broken by the flame of the Tai arrow. If this was the case, why was Gu Xuanyuan's body not injured at all, and was still as perfect as a baby? This was simply an incredible thing. That was close. Fortunately, I didn't put a drop of emperor blood in my mouth. Otherwise, it would have been really troublesome. Gu Xianyuan muttered in his heart. Without a personal shield, Gu Xuanyuan's defense ability was indeed very worrying, so his body was inevitably injured by the Tai arrow. At the moment when the flame fell on his body, not only were Gu Xuanyuan's clothes burned, Gu Xuanyuan's body also suffered great damage. Even his bones were burnt black in an instant. But the problem was that Gu Xianyuan had the emperor blood, a magical medicine that could instantly save her life. Gu Xianyuan immediately swallowed a drop of the emperor blood. No matter how serious the injury was, it was healed in an instant. Therefore, when the flame dissipated, Gu Xuanyuan's body still appeared as perfect as a baby. Because this was a completely new body, of course it looked as perfect as a newborn. Impossible. Seeing Gu Xuanyuan's unharmed body, Jeeb took a few steps back in horror. He couldn't understand why Gu Xianyuan was unharmed. Even if Temujin was here, he wouldn't be able to do this. You still have one last arrow. Seeing the dazed Jeeb, Gu Xianyuan said faintly. It seemed that there was no need for this last arrow to continue. What last arrow? I've already used the Tai arrow. There's no last arrow, Jeeb said with a pained expression. All right, then keep your promise and tell me where the broken sword is. Gu Xianyuan walked to Jeeb's side and said, At the king's tomb. Jeeb seemed to have accepted his fate. He lowered his head and said lifelessly, Sir Tesla said that King Arthur's tomb was too empty and needed some decorations, so I put the broken sword there. King's tomb? You mean the broken sword was placed at Artoria's tombstone? Hearing this answer, Gu Xianyuan suddenly felt a headache. Gu Xianyuan already knew that Glastonbury had Artoria's tombstone. Going to this tombstone to see where Artoria was buried was one of Gu Xuanyuan's original plans. This meant that Gu Xianyuan would have to go to the king's tomb sooner or later. There was no need to waste time here with Jeeb to find a celestial extinguishing sword. How could Gu Xianyuan not feel a headache? Why did you put the broken sword there? Gu Xianyuan asked out of curiosity. Before King Arthur rebelled, I had a conversation with King Arthur. She told me that the sword she loved the most in her life was the sword in the stone. However, the sword in the stone had been broken into two. I remembered this story, so I found the broken sword and put on her tombstone. Jeeb was surprisingly honest and told her the answer in detail. Let's go. It was almost 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Gu Xianyuan did not know how much longer Jiandi, who was in London, could buy her time. Although she had the ability to kill Jibi at this time, it was bound to waste a lot of time. If the three flood-level bandits rushed back, Gu Xianyuan would not have the chance to take the broken sword away. Thinking of this, Gu Xianyuan did not want to continue fighting with Jeeb. She called Li Bai, and the two directly rushed to the king's tomb. Master Jeeb, are you okay? Seeing that Li Bai and Gu Xianyuan had left, Xi and Qiji and the other two rushed up and helped Jibi up from the ground as if he had lost his soul. Seeing Jibi in such a dispirited state, Xi and Qiji and the other two sighed in their hearts. This was a universe-level master, but he was beaten to the point that he lost his mind in such a short period of time. It was too pitiful. When did such a top female sword wielder appear in the human world? Could it be that the explosive flame sword immortal who had disappeared in London had returned? No, I haven't lost yet. Jeeb, who was in a daze just a moment ago, suddenly struggled to stand up from the ground with a ferocious expression on his face. He touched his chest with his left hand and clenched his jaws so hard as if he was going to break his teeth. Hey, I say, Jeeb, don't be so stupid. It's not worth it to do this. Xi and Qiji seemed to have thought of something and immediately said to Jeeb with a cold face, "Get lost." Jibi pushed Xi and Qiji away and disappeared into the void. This is Artoria's tombstone, the place where her body was buried in reality. Gu Xianyuan stood quietly in front of Artoria's tombstone and said, "This tombstone was really beyond Gu Xianyuan's expectations." Gu Xianyuan thought that no matter how ugly King Arthur's tombstone was, there would at least be a stone tablet. However, there was only a wooden tablet erected in front of her. Below the wooden tablet, there was only a simple rectangle surrounded by a few pieces of marble. This rectangle was not even as big as a coffin. I wonder what is written on this wooden tablet. Gu Xianyuan found some words written on the wooden tablet, but these words were written in pure English. In this era where Chinese characters unified the whole world, Gu Xianyuan had no interest in learning English at all. In fact, English had become a small language that was on the verge of extinction. Even his personal terminal didn't have an English translation function, so how could Gu Xianyuan recognize these English words? Forget it. I heard that this is just a cenotaph. There's nothing to be nostalgic about. Gu Xianyuan said faintly and through the wooden tablet side. Her attention was fully focused on the broken sword that was placed on the wooden raft. This was a sword that looked exactly the same as the Zhu Xian sword. The same appearance, the same simplicity, the same no difference from an ordinary iron sword. If Gu Xianyuan didn't know it in advance, she wouldn't be able to guess that this sword was one of the 4 Zhu Xian swords, the extinguished immortal sword, which was said to be able to cut off the whole world. I can't believe that my sister actually fell into this situation. The Zhu Xian sword, which hadn't spoken for a long time, finally spoke again after more than 10 days. After all, it was seeing its own sister, so how could it come out and lament? What should I do next? Gu Xianyuan asked the Zhu Xian sword. I don't know. Gu Xianyuan never thought that the Zhu Xian sword would actually tell her this. Didn't you tell me that as long as I find the extinguished immortal sword and synchronize it, I could become a real spirit sword wielder? Gu Xuanyuan's face turned cold as she questioned the Zhu Xian sword. That's what I said. The Zhu Xian sword said indifferently. What I said is also the truth. As long as you can synchronize with Sister Extinguish Immortal, you can indeed become a real spirit sword wielder. But from the beginning to the end, I never told you that I know how to synchronize with a broken Extinguish Immortal sword. You? Gu Xuanyuan's cheeks turned red. She had calculated everything to this point, But in the end, she was made a fool of by her own Zhu Xian sword. This made Gu Xuanyuan's heart not know what kind of feeling it was. This was only secondary. The real key was that if she couldn't synchronize with the extinguish immortal sword within 2 days, then she would only have a dead end. Gu Xianyuan didn't want to die. She still had a lot of things that she hadn't done. Forget it. If you die, I will also go back to sleep, and the dream of us 4 sisters will be completely destroyed. The Zhu Xian sword lamented, and then, without Gu Xuanyuan's control, the sword took the initiative to wave out a sword chi, which directly cut off Gu Xuanyuan's left arm. In an instant, Gu Xianyuan became a one-armed person. What are you doing? Just as Gu Xianyuan uttered a question, she felt that her consciousness began to fade, and her soul gradually separated from her body. Along with the arm that was cut off, it slowly entered the broken extinguish immortal sword. Find sister extinguish immortal soul, and then let her revive and return to the real world. Otherwise, me, you, and sister extinguish immortal will forever be imprisoned in this broken sword. This was the last sentence that Gu Xianyuan heard from the Zhu Xian sword before she fainted. Chapter 1203. I'm finally a man again. Feeling the little brother that he had not seen for a long time, Gu Han said with a sigh. He had finally returned to his true self, back to the handsome Gu Han. However, Gu Han could not lament for too long. He soon had to face a new fact. That was, he did not know where he was now. The scene in front of Gu Han felt both familiar and strange at the same time. What was familiar were the high-rise buildings and the endless stream of pedestrians, all of which proved that this was a busy human city. But there was something wrong with this city no matter how he looked at it. Although there were high-rise buildings around him, the height of the buildings was generally less than 100 meters. Only about 3/10 of the buildings had a height of more than 100 meters. As for high-rise buildings above 200 meters, they were extremely rare, and there were only a few conspicuous buildings in the entire city. Gu Han could not see the high-rise buildings above 300 meters at all. There were no high-rise buildings above 300 meters in this city. How could this be? This discovery made it very difficult for Gu Han to understand. Even the most underdeveloped Jerusalem-based city, in order to meet the needs of the increasing population, the height of the buildings was generally more than 500 meters, and there were many high-rise buildings more than 1 kilometer. Only the real rich and powerful could afford to live in a 2-story building. This was the first time in Gu Han's life that he had seen such a city with such small houses. In Gu Han's memory, none of the 8 base cities had characteristics that matched this city. Is this an antique car? After getting used to the buildings in this world, Gu Han was shocked by the dense line of cars on the street. This kind of car that relied on 4 wheels to move close to the ground had been completely eliminated as early as 400 years ago. In Gu Han's life, he had experienced the style of an antique off-road vehicle in the Betrayal of Artoria dungeon. Other than that, he had never seen a car that was completely buried in a coffin. This is definitely not a modern society. Gu Han was a smart person. With the 2 discoveries just now, he could guess that the era he was in was not the year 3011 AD. At the very least, it was 2,600 years ago, the era when cars had not been completely eliminated. This person is so strange. What clothes is he wearing? How come I've never seen this style of clothes before? I think it's pretty. That's right, there are actually 8 sword sheaths hanging on his waist, and these sword sheaths are all empty. What does this mean? Oh, I know. This must be cosplay. This person must be cosplaying an anime character with 8 empty scabbards. It can't be. I'm a veteran in Billy. How come I've never heard a character with 8 empty scabbards? This was the conversation between 2 girls on the street. Gu Han's ears couldn't help but twitch when he heard it. He turned his head and looked at the clothes of the 2 girls. They were wearing a short corset that exposed their stomachs and a pair of jeans that were small to the knee. Coupled with 2 pairs of slender snow-white thighs, it could be said that they were very sexy to men. Coplay, anime characters, empty scabbard, veteran in Billy. These new terms that he had never heard of entered Gahan's ears, and it made Gahan's mind light up. He muttered to himself softly, "Could it be that I didn't return to 400 years ago, but to the era before the apocalypse? First, I have to determine the time." Although he was in a completely unfamiliar environment, Gahan behaved very calmly. He quickly made the most correct decision and rushed into a shopping mall on a nearby street. Through the continuous playback of the old-fashioned TV in the mall, Gahan finally learned the time of this era. August 1st, 2024, the 8th day before the apocalypse. Looking at the time displayed on the TV, Gahan's expression was unclear. As humans after the apocalypse, they might be able to forget their parents' birthdays, or perhaps they could forget their own birthdays, but they would never forget the date of August 8th, 2024. This was because it was on this day that the first person in the world, Yuan Ko, broke through the dimensional space and came to the human world. Within 3 days, half of the human population was wiped out. Within 2 months, there were less than 300 million people left on the planet. This was a time that countless humans would tremble in fear when they thought of it. Why am I here? Is this the real world or an illusory dream? After confirming the time, Gahan began to think about the reality of this world. In other words, Gahan did not know if he had traveled through time and truly returned to before the apocalypse 1,000 years ago, or if he had entered a dream or an illusory dream. Although he had these doubts, Gahan was 90% sure that this was not the real world, but some kind of dream or illusory dream. Gahan recalled what had happened in front of the king's tomb. His consciousness followed his broken arm into the immortal extinguishing sword. At this time, Gahan's mind was still echoing with the last words left by the immortal exterminating sword. Find Sister Jueshian's soul and help her revive and return to the real world. Otherwise, you, me, and Sister Jueshian will forever be imprisoned in this broken sword. Looks like I'm most likely in the immortal extinguishing sword's dream. Gahan carefully savored the last words left by the immortal exterminating sword. If the immortal exterminating sword wanted Gahan to help Sister Jueshian return to the real world, this meant that the world they were in was an illusory one, and it was the world within the broken sword. The immortal exterminating sword had also pointed out the way to leave this world. It was to find the soul of the immortal extinguishing sword and wake it up. It sounded very simple, but Gahan was completely at a loss. How to wake the soul of the immortal extinguishing sword aside? Finding the soul of the immortal extinguishing sword was a huge problem. Let's check my condition first. Gahan found a bench in the mall and sat down. He searched his body and found that his personal terminal was still embedded in his wrist, but it showed that it could not connect to the network. Of course, this was normal. It would be strange if he could connect to the quantum network in this illusory dream. Next was his dimensional pocket. Most of the items in his dimensional pocket, including food, items, maglev flying cars, and money were all in his dimensional pocket. Not a single one was missing. However, everything related to the sword mistress, such as the sword mark dust, the dimensional crystal, and all of Gahan's sword mistress's real body in the dimensional pocket had disappeared. What does this mean? Gahan carefully tried to figure out the meaning behind this fact. Is it trying to tell me that the sword mistress doesn't exist in this world? Gahan thought about it and felt very conflicted. If the sword mistress didn't exist in this world, then what was the immortal extinguishing sword that created this world? Mom? That's weird. That big brother is sitting there motionless like a wooden man. Perhaps because Gahan was too focused on thinking, he didn't move at all for more than an hour. He looked like a statue. It was no wonder that some children thought Gahan was very strange. Don't provoke them. They'll kidnap the baby and run down the mountain to be the daughter of a country bumpkin. The mother threatened her daughter. This made Gahan feel very amused. In the age of destruction, the concept of the country bumpkin had long since disappeared. But why does this voice sound so familiar? Gahan felt that the little girl's voice was unexpectedly familiar. He looked in the direction of the voice, and his body stiffened. Whether it was the appearance, the voice, or the behavior, this little girl talking to his mother was clearly his sword mistress, Qingpin's sword. Qingpin, Guhan instinctively shouted at the little lowly. The little lowly raised her head in surprise. She looked at Guhan with a face full of curiosity and asked, "Big brother, how do you know the name of this poor person? Have you seen Qingpin before? Who are you? How do you know my daughter's name?" Compared to Qingpin's innocence, Qingpin's mother was very vigilant. She looked at Gahan with caution. If Gahan didn't answer well, the mother would probably call the police for help. "It's nothing. I just know her," Gahan said calmly. "Suspicious. Very suspicious." The mother immediately lowered her head and took out her mobile phone from her pocket. When she raised her head and was about to dial 110, she found that there was suddenly no one in front of her. The young man who was talking to her just now had disappeared without a trace, as if he had never appeared in front of her. What the hell? The mother felt a chill in her heart. She gave up the idea of buying things. She pulled her daughter, called a DD Express, and ran home as if she was running for her life. However, the mother didn't notice that during the short period of time when they got on the car, a figure rushed under the car at an extremely fast speed and never came out again. "Old John, I'm telling you, I met a pervert today. I'm afraid he's going to do something to our daughter." After returning home, the mother told the husband what happened today with exaggerated details. However, the husband obviously didn't care. After casually dealing with his wife, he continued to watch TV and surf the internet. It wasn't until 12 o'clock at night that the parents entered the bedroom to rest. At this time, a black shadow suddenly appeared outside the window of Qingpin's children's bedroom. Qingpin's mother was careful and deliberately locked the window. However, she was facing an inhuman existence. The other party's hand only shook the window slightly, and the window lock was instantly shaken off. The window was then pulled open, and the black shadow quickly rushed into the room. Well, what a scene of a night raid on a lowly. Chapter 1204. Qingpin. Qingpin. The half-asleep little lowly suddenly heard a voice calling her name. She drowsily opened her eyes and saw a dark figure lying on her bed. A dark face was facing her. The face was only a few centimeters away from hers. Woo-woo. The little lowly was about to scream instinctively, but her mouth was blocked by something soft. It turned out that Gohan had lowered his head in a hurry and blocked Qingpin's lips with his own, not letting the other party make a sound. Well, if one didn't know the inside story, this scene alone was enough to make Gohan suffer for 3 years. In fact, if it were another woman, Gohan wouldn't use his own lips. He could quickly rub a ball of sword energy and throw it directly into the other party's throat, ensuring that the other party wouldn't be able to say a word. However, it didn't matter since the person in front of him was Qingpin. Gohan had eaten Qingpin's small lips countless times and was already used to it. It was no big deal. "Qingpin, don't worry. I won't hurt you. I came to ask you something. Can you promise me not to scream later?" Although his mouth was blocked by Qingpin's mouth, his words sounded a little muffled, but he could still hear it clearly. Woo-woo. Qingpin couldn't speak. He could only nod his head like a chick pecking rice, indicating that he agreed to Gohan's request. Okay. It turned out that Gohan had been careless. He instinctively thought that Qingpin was his own Qingpin and neglected some basic precautions. However, the current Qingpin was not the original Qingpin after all. In addition, Qingpin usually looked a little muddle-headed, but in fact, he was a very smart little guy. So, from the perspective of a battle of wits, the unguarded Gohan had already lost more than half of the battle. "Help! Mommy, help! There's a bad person, Mommy." In the end, Qingpin directly threw the promise he had just made to the back of his head. As soon as Gohan's lips left her lips, he opened his little throat and screamed loudly. Although the little lowly had a soft voice, her voice was very sharp. She could shout out sounds that many adults couldn't. Therefore, Qingpin's parents, who lived next door, were immediately alerted. Gohan could clearly hear a rush of footsteps rushing towards Qingpin's room. "It's you, the pervert from today." The light in Qingpin's bedroom was turned on with a snap. A pair of parents in disheveled clothes appeared in front of Gohan with a frightened face. His mother pointed at Gohan's head and immediately called out, Guhan's identity. Meanwhile, his father conveniently picked up a child's scale from the side of the door and directly smashed it towards Guhan's head. With his father's ability, of course, it was impossible for him to hit Guhan. Guhan immediately turned his head and dodged. However, after he did this, Guhan regretted it because Guhan was currently pressing down on Qingpin. Guhan dodged it, and the child's scale smashed towards Qingpin's poor little head. Guhan sighed. At the moment when the scale was about to smash down on the poor man's head, he flicked out a stream of sword chi from the tip of his finger and struck the scale. The scale, which was originally falling vertically, was instantly sent flying out and smashed into the wall opposite. In the end, the entire scale broke into pieces, and a small pit the size of a fist was smashed out on the wall. Seeing this scene, his mother instinctively let out a scream, while his father trembled and rushed to his room, muttering 110. 110. He was probably going to call the police. Although this was an illusory world, it would be troublesome if there were police in the illusory world. Therefore, Guhan directly shot out 2 sword auras and hit the back of the parents' heads. He directly knocked them out and saved a lot of trouble. Papa, Mom. Seeing that her parents had fainted, the little girl, Qingpin, instinctively thought that her parents had been killed by Guhan. She immediately began to cry and constantly hit Guhan, who was on top of her, trying to push him away. Don't worry, your parents are not dead. Guhan originally wanted to say that he only knocked them out, but on second thought, Guhan directly changed his words and threatened, I just injected them with poison, and only my unique antidote can detoxify it. Do whatever I tell you to do next. Otherwise, even if the police come, your parents will not be able to be saved. Oh, sniff. Oh, sniff. Qingpin responded to Guhan while sniffing her own nose. This pair blossom in tears was unexpectedly very cute, which made Guhan involuntarily feel that it was very cool to bully a little girl. Qingpin, don't cry. Good brother, what do you want Qingpin to do? As long as you can cure my parents, Qingpin will listen to you. Qingpin can give all my toys, all my dolls to you. This world's Qingpin was unexpectedly sensible and obedient, taking the initiative to say to Guhan. However, this conversation sounded like Guhan was a heinous Lilicon pervert. Don't worry, I don't want your dolls. I just want you to answer a few questions. You just have to answer me in detail. Guhan repeated helplessly. Oh. Qingpin responded with an oh, and the expression on his face finally looked a lot happier. It seemed that being able to keep his dolls and toys made Qingpin very happy. Qingpin, do you really not recognize me? I am Guhan, your master Guhan. Look at my face. Look at my face carefully. Do you not have any impression of me? Guhan wanted to put his whole face in front of Qingpin, so that Qingpin could see it clearly. No impression. I don't recognize you. Qingpin looked at Guhan several times, as if he was looking at the enemy who killed his father, and finally gave Guhan such an answer. It doesn't make sense. If she is Qingpin, it is impossible for her not to recognize me. Is she really not Qingpin, but just a little lowly with the same appearance? After listening to Qingpin's answer, Guhan was very distressed. Let's try another way. However, Guhan did not give up so easily. He first took out a large bowl of red braised meat from his dimensional pocket. This was a specially customized red braised meat. Every taste in it was customized according to Qingpin's preferences. It was Qingpin's favorite. Therefore, Guhan sent this bowl of red braised meat to Qingpin. After forcing Qingpin to take a bite, Qingpin was deeply infatuated with this taste. She didn't even care about the tears on her face and ate the bowl of red braised meat in big mouthfuls. This once again proved that this Qingpin was Guhan's Qingpin. But the problem was that after eating this large bowl of red braised meat, Qingpin's memory of Guhan did not change. She still had no memory of Guhan. What about this? Guhan found a lot of things that Qingpin liked. In the end, he even took out his nursery bag and let Qingpin relive the old dream in his arms for a while. Although Qingpin's hobbies were useless, she still deeply loved the things that she originally liked, but she just couldn't recall her memory of Guhan. What should I do? At this time, Gahan had been busy for a few hours. Today, an orange-yellow morning light hung up, which meant that morning was coming. Gahan had been tossing and turning all night without any progress. The entire city would wake up soon. It seemed that it was impossible to wake up Qingpin in a short time, but it was inconvenient to carry this little lowly with him. Just as Gahan was about to put Qingpin down for the time being and look for other ways, Qingpin suddenly pulled Gahan's sleeve and whispered, "Qingpin has been tormented by you all night. Her body is sticky and uncomfortable. Can you help Qingpin take a bath?" "Hey, what do you mean by being tormented by me all night? Her body is sticky and uncomfortable?" The ambiguity in this is very serious. Okay, Gahan complained helplessly, but one night, she saw her parents fainting, crying, and eating braised pork and dompa pork. This little lowly could be said to be covered in sweat and tears. Gahan even felt a little sticky when he touched it. Okay, Gahan patted Qingpin's head. For Qingpin's request, even if it was the unreasonable kind, Gahan couldn't help but agree to it, let alone this legitimate request. So Gahan carried Qingpin into the bathroom and found that the bathroom had a fish tank and a shower. When Gahan was about to fill the bathtub with water, he was surprised to find that the bath equipment of 1,000 years ago was completely different from that of 1,000 years later. Gahan actually didn't know how to use this set of equipment for a while. A button was pressed, and a large basin of cold water sprayed directly from Gahan's shower head, drenching Qingpin and Gahan below. "Are you an idiot?" Qingpin kicked Gahan angrily, and then climbed up Gahan's thigh to his arm. She operated the button a few times, and hot water gushed out from the bathtub on the side. This once again proved that this Qingpin was Qingpin. Otherwise, others wouldn't have the ability to climb up Gahan's body. "Okay, bathe yourself. I'm leaving." Gahan put Qingpin on the edge of the bathtub, smiled at Qingpin, and then said, "As for your parents, I have just given them the antidote. They will be fine." After that, Gahan was ready to leave the house. Wait! Unexpectedly, before Gahan's foot stepped out of the bathroom, Qingpin chased after him. His small body directly hit Gahan's leg, and he pulled the corner of Gahan's clothes, saying pitifully, "Gahan, help me. I don't know how to take off my clothes." Gahan turned around and looked at the weak and pitiful Qingpin. He began to consider whether he should be a little bit more beastly. Chapter 1205. I've never taken off my clothes myself. Mommy always helped Qingpin take off her clothes. Qingpin looked at Gahan with teary eyes. "Your mommy really spoils you rotten." Gahan sighed. He didn't realize that in reality, it was mostly when Maiden or Gahan who helped Qingpin take off her clothes when she took a bath. Qingpin's pampering was mostly due to Gahan's pampering. "You actually let me help you take off your clothes. Didn't you say that I'm a bad person?" Gahan sighed and asked curiously. "You shouldn't be a bad person." Qingpin tilted her head and said, "Why?" Gahan continued to be puzzled. "I don't know." Qingpin shook her head very seriously. "Forget it." Gahan didn't know what to say. He directly started to help Qingpin take off her clothes. To be honest, Gahan was still very good at taking off clothes. After all, he didn't know how many times he had helped Qingpin take off her clothes in reality. "All right, you can take a bath by yourself." Gahan threw the naked Qing Popper into the bathtub and was about to turn around and leave. But before he took a few steps, he felt that something was wrong. Why did Qing Popper not move after he threw her into the bathtub? This was completely different from her usual lively personality, which was filled with the urge to fight in the bathtub. Gahan quickly turned around and looked down into the bathtub. He found that this little fellow had actually sunk into the bathtub. Bubbles kept coming out of her nostrils. She seemed to have fainted. Qingpin. Gahan was shocked when he saw it. He directly jumped into the bathtub and carried Qingpin out. His left hand pressed hard on her snow-white, tender, and cute belly. Qingpin's mouth was like a fountain that spurted out a large stream of water, shooting at Gahan's face. Qingpin spat out a few bubbles. Her eyes opened slightly. It seemed that she was fine. Fortunately, Gahan reacted in time. Otherwise, It was estimated that Qingpin would have drowned in the bathtub. So sleepy. Sleep. Qingpin continued to make soft sounds in a hazy manner, but it made Gohan half choke. This little fellow was sleepy just now. Why did she ask to take a bath? She could just lie on the bed and sleep. Forget it. I will carry you to sleep. Gohan carried Qingpin and prepared to leave the bathtub to put her back on the bed. No, I still want to take a bath. It's so sticky. It's so uncomfortable. As a result, when Gohan just got up, Qingpin began to make noise in her half-asleep state. She insisted on taking a bath, but Qingpin herself was in a daze. How could she take a bath in this state? In desperation, Gohan could only help her to the end. He took a towel from the wall and began to help Qingpin wash her body. Fortunately, because Qingpin was asleep, her body didn't move much. She was like a little suckling pig that had its fur removed. She didn't move an inch and let Gohan wash her body. Gohan didn't avoid anything. From her hair to her face, from her arms to her thighs, from her palms to her soles, from the two undeveloped little red beans to the snow-white, hairless little Mantu, he washed her from head to toe. It took about half an hour. Gohan had never given a woman such a serious bath in his life. After washing Qingpin with great difficulty, the little loli seemed to have woken up from her half-asleep state and muttered softly. Faced with the request of his most precious sword maiden, Gohan, of course, had no reason to refuse. He naturally pulled Qingpin into his arms. At the same time, feeling the warmth of Gohan's embrace, Qingpin very naturally muttered, "Gohan, I really like you. Can I marry you and be your wife?" After all, the little loli was a little loli. Her thoughts were very simple. If someone treated her a little better, she would marry him and be his wife. How could she forget that her parents were beaten unconscious by Gohan and were lying on the ground? This was clearly a pervert who broke into her home. "Little fellow, you are my sword maiden. Of course, we will be together forever," Gohan said as he knocked Qingpin's little head. What Gohan didn't expect was that after he finished speaking, Qingpin's body and his arms instantly turned into a ray of light. In the blink of an eye, it turned into the Qingpin sword that Gohan was very familiar with. It actually returned to the sword. Holding the familiar Qingpin sword in his hand, Gohan couldn't understand. From the beginning to the end, he didn't give the command to Qingpin to return to the sword. It was reasonable to say that Qingpin herself had forgotten the fact that she was a sword maiden. So, how could Qingpin suddenly turn back into the Qingpin sword? "Gohan, where's Qingpin? Why did Qingpin become like this?" Qingpin's mind is in a mess. At this time, in Gohan's mind, Qingpin's voice suddenly sounded. At the same time, in the Zifu of his body, a dim sword scar instantly became bright. It was like an extinguished star had been reignited, and this dim sword scar was naturally Qingpin's sword scar. But in Gohan's Zifu, the sword scars of other sword maidens were still dark. It was like ashes had been burnt. "Qingpin, have all your memories come back? Have all the memories from the first time we synchronized?" Gohan asked nervously. "What memories have come back? You make it seem like I have forgotten. How could Qingpin forget Gohan? This is impossible." Qingpin muttered, "You little thing." Gohan's heart finally calmed down. He felt very comfortable and scolded. It seemed that Qingpin's memories had been completely restored. Qingpin had once again turned back into his own sword maiden, Qingpin's sword. "Qingpin, carefully check your own body. See if there is anything abnormal," Gohan quickly said to Qingpin. He needed the information of Qingpin's body to evaluate this illusion. Soon, Qingpin told Gohan that her body was normal. But there were a lot of hazy and unclear memories in her mind. She only remembered that she seemed to have a pair of parents in this world. But she couldn't remember anything from when she was a baby to now. And when Gohan asked Qingpin some specific things about this world, such as what her favorite TV program was, Qingpin couldn't answer at all. It seems that this is indeed an illusion. Gohan confirmed again. This time, he made a judgment based on Qingpin's memory. If this world was the real world, then Qingpin's memory shouldn't be so vague. Even if a child's memory was very bad and many things couldn't be clearly remembered when they were young, It was impossible for them to forget things like cartoons that they usually like to watch. There was only one explanation for this situation, and that was that this world was fake. There were no memories of the past that Qingpin lived in. At most, it could only subconsciously deceive Qingpin that this world was real. Gahan, what are we going to do next? Qingpin asked Gahan curiously. We need to find a way to find a celestial extinguished sword. Then, let the celestial extinguished sword recover its consciousness and memory as a sword maiden like you did just now. When that time comes, we should be able to leave this illusion. Gahan explained his goal in a simple manner. Then, how do we find the celestial extinguished sword? Qingpin asked again. I don't know about that. Gahan spread his hands helplessly. I can still find you in Guyan based on your appearance, but I've never seen what the celestial extinguished sword looks like. I don't have any information or photos related to the celestial extinguished sword. Even if she stood in front of me right now, I wouldn't be able to recognize her. Then what should we do? That means that we're going to be trapped in this illusion forever. But maybe this way. Hearing Gahan's words, Qingpin first turned pale with fright. However, her tone gradually changed towards the end. There was no longer the worry at the beginning. Instead, there seemed to be some happiness in it. What's wrong with you? Gahan noticed the change in Qingpin's tone and asked curiously. Oh, Qingpin just feels that staying in this world isn't bad. This world is much more interesting than the previous one, Qingpin said cheerfully. Unfortunately, this is just an illusion. Since it's an illusion, it will dissipate sooner or later. Gahan mercilessly shattered Qingpin's fantasy. He knocked on the blade of Qingpin's sword and asked, Qingpin, are you going to change back to your human form or stay in the scabbard? Human form. Qingpin won't stay in the scabbard. This month, Qingpin has been staying in the scabbard every day. I'm going crazy, Qingpin immediately said. Then, in the blink of an eye, she changed back to Qingpin's appearance. In the previous month, because Gahan had turned into Gu Xian Yuan, the one and only Qingpin sword that could directly prove Gahan's identity could obviously appear in the outside world. Gahan had directly hidden it in the scabbard for a month. This little fellow who liked to jump around almost fainted from suffocation. Why are you running? Put on some clothes for me first. Gahan grabbed Qingpin's naked butt and took out a set of children's underwear and crocodile clothes from the dimensional pocket for Qingpin to wear. This cute little thing that Gahan was most familiar with had officially returned to Gahan's side. By the way, what about Mom and Dad? Gahan, who had also changed into a new set of clothes, carried Qingpin, the little crocodile, out of the bathroom. In the end, Qingpin found that her cheap parents were still lying on the ground unconscious. She asked Gahan with some distress, Forget it, don't care about them. They are just an illusion. When we leave this illusion, everything here probably doesn't exist anymore. Gahan said faintly. Then, she directly carried Qingpin and left her temporary home. In fact, according to Gahan's original idea, killing this couple was the simplest way. However, thinking that Qingpin still called them Mom and Dad, it was estimated that her subconscious had not fully recovered. Killing them might leave a bad memory for Qingpin. So, after hesitating for a while, Gahan decided to let them live. When Gahan left with Qingpin a few hours later, the sun rose to a place in the sky. Only then did the couple wake up from their coma. When they saw their missing daughter in the bathroom with obvious signs of use, the couple first hugged each other and cried bitterly for a while. Then, they immediately called the police for help. As a result, in the afternoon of the same day, a piece of news. A perverted man with monstrous lust broke into the house and stole their young daughter. The parents were so sad that they wanted to cry, but had no tears. It began to spread on WeChat Moments and Weibo. It was just that the parents did not have a photo of Gahan. They could only post a photo of their daughter. Qingpin, do you have money on you? When Gahan left with Qingpin, it was around 6 in the morning. At this time, there were still very few people on the street. However, all kinds of breakfast stalls had already been set up. Qingpin immediately began to shout, clamoring to eat street breakfast. In fact, Gahan had prepared a lot of food in his dimensional pocket. However, those were all food from the real world. Because of the shortage of ingredients, The food in the real world was actually very monotonous. There was a world of difference between the standard of cooking and that before the apocalypse. For example, before the apocalypse, buns and youtiao could be seen everywhere, but in reality, they were a kind of legend that had never been heard of. If he had not entered this dreamland, Gahan would not have known that there were such things as buns and youtiao in this world. After smelling the fragrance of the street breakfast stalls, Qingpin was not even interested in Gahan's braised pork. He insisted on eating buns and youtiao by the street. Qingpin was very noisy. Gahan had no choice but to find a breakfast stall and sit down. He ordered a lot of buns and youtiao for Qingpin. He smiled bitterly as he watched the foodie, Qingpin, wolfing down the food in front of him. "Young man, control your sister. You shouldn't eat like this. It's not good for a child's stomach." In the blink of an eye, Qingpin had already drunk 2 bowls of soy milk, eaten 20 youtiao, and 10 meat buns. The owner of the breakfast stall was shocked. He took the initiative to run over to persuade Gahan. "It's okay. Children are still growing. It doesn't matter if they eat a little more." Gahan answered vaguely. He could not tell the owner that Qingpin was not a real human, but a sword mistress waiting for a human skin. "Excuse me, it's a total of 180 yuan. When Qingpin finally put down the bowl in his hand in satisfaction, the owner fearfully looked at Qingpin's little belly in the crocodile suit. After making sure that the belly was not bulging as if it was pregnant, he ran over to settle the bill with Gahan. "Okay, keep the change." Gahan directly threw 2 100 yuan bills into the owner's hand. Thank you. Thank you." The owner first thanked him profusely. However, when he looked down, his face became as black as charcoal. He grabbed the sleeve of Gahan, who was about to leave, and said angrily, "Young man, you can't be like this. Even if you want to be a scammer, you should at least give me a decent fake bill. I want to take out your sister's toy bill to play tricks on people." Looking at the owner's hand with the 100 yuan bills of the 6 most outstanding emperor sword wielders in human history, including Kenzu, Zhetian Jindi, Gahan realized that he might have overlooked an extremely important issue. Of course, the bills of this era could not be exactly the same as the bills of 1,000 years later. At the very least, humans in this era would not print Kenzu's head on the bills. This was because Kenzu was still an underage child. "I'm sorry. I took the wrong note when I went out. My sister is not sensible and used her own toy bill to replace my bill. That's why I made the mistake. Let me go first. I'll go home and get the money for you." Gahan had an idea and said calmly to the owner. Perhaps because Gahan's expression was too calm and normal, it was very unreasonable to use such an obvious fake bill. The owner naturally believed Gahan's words. However, the owner said, "Why is it so troublesome to go home? Don't you have WeChat on your phone? Can't you just use WeChat transfer?" "What's WeChat? What's WeChat transfer?" Gahan thought about these 2 new terms in distress, but he did not show any confusion on his face. He just said calmly, "I left my WeChat at home. I didn't bring it with me." Although he felt that the grammar of the sentence WeChat was left at home was a little confusing, the boss naturally thought that Gahan had left his phone at home. He said helplessly, "These days, it's common to see people going out without their keys, but this is the first time I've seen someone going out without their phone. Okay, you go home and get the money, but your sister has to stay here with me for the time being. Don't worry, I've opened a breakfast stall here for more than 10 years. Everyone here knows me. I'm not a bad person." "Okay." Gahan nodded. In desperation, he was ready to go directly to Qingpin's house to see if he could find some money at home. Suddenly, a voice rang in the ears of Gahan and the owner. "There's no need to go through so much trouble. I'll pay for this little sister's meal." This voice was so familiar that when Gahan turned around, he saw a girl smiling like a lily appear beside him. "Starting point," Gahan said softly. Chapter 1206. You know me? Have we met before? Chidian paid for Gahan's breakfast with WeChat and asked Gahan curiously. "We were neighbors when we were young. Don't you remember me?" Gahan made up a story, but it was not a casual story. It was deliberate, because in this way, Gahan could continue to chat with Chi as a neighbor. No way. I lived in the forest since I was young. I know everyone there. I never remember having a neighbor like you. Chi said strangely. Forest. Gahan looked up and found a pure black super luxury car parked on the street behind Chi. Thinking about how Chi paid for his meal without blinking, Gahan quickly judged that Chi should be a rich kid, and the forest was probably the name of a high-end residential area. When we were very young, about 2 or 3 years old, my family was in decline, and the house in the forest was sold. It's normal that you don't remember me. Gahan sighed and said with infinite sadness, I'm sorry. Chi smiled awkwardly and waved to Gahan. It's getting late. I have to go to school. Let's talk when we meet again. After that, Chi trotted to his luxury car. The car turned a corner and disappeared from Gahan's sight. Young man, you're lucky. You actually met the Missy of the Shun phone group today. She paid for your breakfast. Hurry up and take your sister home. Remember to bring your phone next time. Don't be so muddle-headed. The boss began to educate Gahan. Boss, do you know this Missy? Gahan asked curiously. Of course. The Missy of the Shun phone group is very famous in this area. She also goes to Shanghai University. Basically, everyone in this area knows her. I heard that when I was a child, I went to a master to read my fortune. He said that when I was 18 years old, I would face a bloody disaster. I need to do 3 good deeds every day and persist for more than 15 years to resolve this bloody disaster. That's why this young lady appears around us every day and helps others just like she helped you. There's almost no one in this area who doesn't know her, the boss said and suddenly frowned. Strange, since you know Miss Chi and are her neighbor. Why would you ask me about this? The boss didn't get an answer to his question because when he looked up, Gahan and Qingpin had disappeared without a trace. Gahan, where are we going? Are we going to the University of Monster Science and Technology to wake up Big Sister? Qingpin asked Gahan curiously on a commercial street. Don't worry. Didn't you realize that it's hard to move an inch in this world without money? Gahan knocked on Qingpin's head. Let's find a way to find money first. Oh, but where are we going to find money? I seem to remember that there's something called a lottery in this world that can earn millions of yuan overnight. Qingpin said as she tried hard to recall her memory of this world. There's no such thing as a lottery in this world that can win a prize. Gahan curled his lips and said, Then let's work to earn money. Foxconn is hiring. We can earn 3,500 yuan a month. Qingpin said as she pointed to a small Foxconn recruitment advertisement on a nearby electric pole. There's only 7 days left before the apocalypse. By then, we won't even get our first week's salary. Gahan knocked on Qingpin's head hard. Then we'll be like that grandpa, lying on the ground and earning money without looking at anything. Qingpin saw an old man with tattered clothes kneeling on the ground and begging not far away. At that moment, a young man took out 10 yuan from his wallet and threw it into the old man's hand. He immediately said, as if he had found a treasure, It's fast and easy to earn money this way. Little fool, why do you always think of normal ways to earn money? Gahan smiled helplessly and said, Why can't you think of some abnormal ways to earn money? Just as they were talking, Gahan pointed to 2 men at the bus stop in front. One of them was using his body to block the view of others, while the other man was sneakily putting his hand into the bag of a fashionable lady who was squeezing into the bus. How fast can we earn money that way? Gahan said with a smile. Wow, this woman is quite rich, at least a few thousand yuan. In an alley, 2 thieves were happily counting the day's harvest after they had succeeded. Looks like Qingpin's harvest today is not bad. We can earn a few thousand yuan to feed Gahan. Another cheerful voice sounded in the ears of the 2 thieves. The 2 thieves immediately raised their heads in alarm and saw a little lowly wearing a crocodile costume appearing in front of them. Phew, the 2 thieves let out a sigh of relief at first. They thought that an undercover police officer had appeared. When they realized that their target was a cute little lowly, an evil thought naturally emerged in their minds. Little girl, Uncle will take you to eat lollipops, okay? One of the thieves said with a fake smile. Yes, it's a milk-filled lollipop that can spit out milk. The other thief's face was no longer a fake smile, but a lecherous smile. What's a milk-filled lollipop? Is it really delicious? Is it as delicious as Gohan's braised pork? Qingpin tilted her head and asked. Of course, it's 10,000 times better than braised pork. The two thieves laughed even more happily. Our lollipops are natural, pollution-free, fresh, and unprocessed organic food. Forget it, Gohan said that we can't eat lollipops from strangers. You guys should just give the money to Qingpin and let Qingpin buy braised pork. Qingpin said with her eyes wide open. Little girl, it's not up to you. The two thieves could no longer resist the temptation of the little lowly. They wanted to hug Qingpin in their arms. However, they only saw a flash of silver light in front of their eyes, followed by blood-red water droplets splashing on their pupils. Finally, they felt their palms become lighter. When they looked down, they saw that their right hand only had 4 fingers left. Blood-red blood gushed out like a fountain from where their index fingers used to be. The scene looked extremely beautiful. Meanwhile, the little girl was holding a long sword that was as tall as her. She looked at her palm that was like a fountain with a smile on her face. The scene looked extremely terrifying. Ah, help! Help! At this moment, the two thieves were not arrogant at all. They scrambled to escape the alley. Don't you want your fingers? The two thieves didn't run for a few steps before they were stopped by a man. This time, the man pointed to the 2 severed fingers on the ground and said, I heard that although the medicine of this era can't regenerate severed fingers, the ability to reconnect severed fingers is still there. If you take your fingers to the hospital, maybe you can reconnect them. The two thieves looked at each other, bent down, and rushed to the severed fingers on the ground. As a result, when they were less than a meter away from the target, they were kicked heavily in the chest and flew a few meters away. Well, I don't want to talk nonsense with you two. Hand over all your money, Gohan said coldly. By the way, use your good hand to take the money. I don't want to use a bloodstained note. Yes, yes. The two thieves knew that they had met a martial arts master, so they didn't dare to say anything else. They handed over all their gains today to Gohan in fear and trepidation. Gohan took a look and found that the money added up was estimated to be less than 7,000 yuan. That's too little, Gohan said indifferently. Are these 2 fingers of yours only worth 7,000 yuan? To tell you the truth, 7,000 yuan can only buy 2 fingernails at most. Give me 1 million yuan, and you can take these 2 fingers back. Sir, please let us go. We're just 2 small shrimps. Even if we sell them, we won't be able to get 1 million yuan. Hearing Gohan say so, the 2 thieves suddenly knelt down while covering their bleeding fingers and begging in pain. Oh, then let's change the way. Gohan smiled. You two tell me, is there a bad guy with a net worth of more than 10 million yuan nearby who is exactly the same as you? You want to cheat us? The 2 thieves exclaimed. Boss, I've tricked 2 more fools. They really think that I'm a Hong Kong lady who can't give birth to a child. A bald man with a fierce face said to a man with a dignified face and murderous aura next to him. Very good. Let Teacher Wong give them a lesson and squeeze all the money out of them. The boss said viciously. This was an MLM organization lurking in the residential area. They relied on relatives to deceive relatives and fools to deceive fools. They had already locked up hundreds of people in these residential areas, and their net worth had reached more than 10 million yuan. Boss, I also got something. I caught a guy who was poking his head around nearby. At this time, another fierce, short-haired man came in. A guy who was poking his head around? Could it be a cop? The boss said vigilantly. It shouldn't be. This guy is very young. He looks about 18 years old. How can there be such a young cop? The short-haired man said as he pushed a young man in. Seeing that this person was indeed very young, the boss immediately felt relieved. Nowadays, all the cops had to graduate from the police academy. Most of the people who came out to investigate were already in their 20s. Indeed, there were no such young cops anymore. Young man, do you know about Amway? Seeing this young man, the boss suddenly became interested. Ever since the organization expanded, he had been hiding behind the scenes and beating people up. He had never attended a frontline class. However, seeing this young man, the boss inexplicably had a little interest and decided to personally Amway this young man. I don't know. The young man shook his head sincerely. What he said was the truth. There was no Amway after 1,000 years. Then let me tell you, Amway is the world's best nutrition product, the best cosmetics, and the best merchandise. As long as you eat one Amway, a long life won't be a dream. As long as you sell a box of Amway, you'll be able to achieve meteoric success. It'll be easy for you to reach the peak of your life. The boss was so enthusiastic that the scar on his forehead started to contort. Look at me. Look at this gold chain of mine. The boss grabbed the gold chain hanging on his neck. Good Lord, this gold chain was at least as thick as a finger. The price of this chain was estimated to have exceeded 100,000 yuan. This is what I earned from selling 10 boxes of Amway. As long as you also sell 10 boxes of Amway, you can wear a gold chain as thick as mine. The boss directly hooked his arm around Gahan's shoulder and tempted Gahan. How much is this Amway? Gahan asked curiously. It's simple. Seeing that Gahan took the bait so easily, the boss sighed and continued to introduce enthusiastically. First, spend 18888 to buy a box of Amway from me. Then, you can become our second-level agent. In the future, if anyone buys Amway directly from you, you can take a 30% commission. As for those who have bought Amway from you, they will become your second-level agents. My third-level agents can also help you sell Amway. You can also take 10% of the Amway they sell as your agency fee. In this way, for every additional level of agent, you can earn a layer of agency fee. If this goes on, you will soon reach the pinnacle of your life and wear this golden chain like me. One is never too old to learn. The ancients actually invented such a way to make money. It's really amazing. Gohan sighed in his heart. In reality, MLM had been completely eradicated. No one, including Gahan, knew what MLM was. If it wasn't for this illusion, Gohan would never have thought of such a way to make money. How about it? Join us and do it together. After the boss finished talking a lot of nonsense, he patted his cold chest and said loudly, "But this is still too slow." Gohan frowned and said with some regret, "This is already very fast. It's much better than your dead salary. If you want to be fast, hurry up and call your relatives and friends. As long as they pay for Amway, boss, I will immediately give you the commission." The boss looked at this young man in surprise. He suddenly realized that this young man might be greedier than he thought. "No, this is still too slow. I have a faster way." Gohan squinted and said, "What way?" The boss asked instinctively. For example, as soon as Gahan's voice fell, the boss felt a pain in his neck. When he reacted, the gold necklace hanging on his neck was already on Gahan's neck, and the other party looked at him with a smile. "You see, this is much faster. Damn it, you're trying to cheat me on me. Go and let this stinking brat know the rules." The boss then realized that he was played by Gahan. He said to the other thugs in the room. Those thugs immediately surrounded him. There were more than a dozen of these thugs. Each of them looked fierce and had scary tattoos on their bodies. If an ordinary person saw them, they would definitely be scared to the point of peeing their pants. Sigh, there's no sense of accomplishment in bullying you guys. It's more comfortable to beat up Yuan Ko. Gohan put his hand into his clothes. Then, under the boss's gaze, he took out a long sword that was about 1 meter long. This made the boss couldn't help but look at Lu's eyes to see if there was something wrong with his eyes. "Be careful when you make your move. I'm going to kill this brat. I'm going to teach him how to be a man," the boss said while rubbing his eyes. But when he finished rubbing his eyes, he found that the whole world had become different. His thugs, who were fierce just now, had all fallen to the ground and were wailing in pain. If you looked carefully, you could see that there was a long and deep blood mark on the tendon behind their ankles. This blood mark was cut so perfectly that not a single drop of blood flowed out. "Well, hand over all your money." Gohan looked at the boss with a smile and said, I like the way to make money quickly." Chapter 12:07. You shouldn't have messed with me. The boss reached under the table behind him and pulled out a pitch-black pistol. The black muzzle was pointed at Gahan's head. "Kneel down now and cut off your right hand. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless." The boss looked nervously at the long sword in Gahan's hand. He spat on the ground and cursed. "Damn it, do you think you're still in the era of martial arts? There are no martial arts masters now. Those with guns are the masters. Hurry up and cut off your right hand." "Gun." Gohan glanced at the pistol and said disdainfully, "Can it be faster than my sword? Madman! Madman! Go to hell." The boss no longer cared about anything else. He directly pulled the trigger in his hand, and a crisp gunshot rang out. The boss closed his eyes nervously. He was afraid to see the scene where Gohan's brain burst. Although he got himself a gun, to be honest, he had never killed anyone with a gun, so he was still quite afraid. He should be dead. After the gunshot sounded for more than 10 seconds, the boss opened his eyes hesitantly. However, he did not see Gohan's body with his brain burst out as he had imagined. Instead, he saw Gohan's cold face and a bullet in his hand. Damn, I missed it at such a close distance. The boss did not expect that the bullet in Gohan's hand was caught by Gohan just now. He took it for granted that his shot just now had missed, and the bullet in Gohan's hand should be the bullet he carried. Damn it, I won't miss this time, the boss muttered. Then, he did not dare to close his eyes like before. Instead, he opened his eyes wide and shot 3 consecutive shots at Gohan in front of him. Enough, my patience has its limits. Gohan snorted coldly. He grabbed something in the air and sent it toward Boss. The 3 bullets that were still emitting smoke and smoke were sent to Boss's face. F***, shooting a movie. The boss yelled crazily. You must be shooting a movie. Where's the director? Where are the props? Hurry up and come out, I'm going to kill you. Sigh, what a waste of time. Gohan leaned forward and twisted his wrist slightly. Before the boss could react, the pistol in his hand fell into Gohan's hand. The black muzzle was directly pressed against his head. Do you want to live or die? Gohan asked coldly. I want to live. He wanted to live. I don't want to die, the boss quickly said. At this time, he had regained his rationality. Very good. Gohan nodded with satisfaction. Someone told me that you have 10 million. I'll give you 10 minutes. You'd better ask your men to bring me 10 million in cash now. Otherwise, I'll kill you on the spot. Yes. Yes. The boss nodded repeatedly. He was not surprised by Gohan's behavior of asking for cash. After all, it was very easy to track the flow of the cash if he used the transfer method. It was more reliable and safer to use cash. Under the threat of death, the boss immediately called his wife. 9 minutes later, his wife and a few women came crying with several bags of cash. I'd like to see how this guy can take away so much cash. The boss felt the pain of losing 10 million in cash and looked at Gohan with the attitude of watching a joke. This guy actually did not bring his companions and ran here alone. It should be known that it was not easy to take the cash in these bags. It would definitely restrict the opponent's movement. Maybe he could take the opportunity to launch a sneak attack when the opponent took the money. Come on, I'll show you a magic trick. Gohan seemed to have seen through the boss's thoughts. The corners of his mouth curled into a slight smile. His palm lightly touched the backpacks, and they instantly disappeared without a trace. The boss and the other women were so scared that their eyes almost popped out. Is this a magic trick? The boss said to himself in a daze. But my wife is not Dongqing. Oh yes. After putting all the money into the dimensional pocket, Gohan seemed to think of something. He turned his head and said to the boss with a smile, Just now someone recommended you to me and said that you have a net worth of 10 million. Now I'll give you a chance. You can recommend me a friend of the underworld who has a net worth of 30 million. Yes. Understood. The boss immediately jumped up and said, Wow, it turns out that someone dug a pit for me and led this killing god here. Then don't blame me for being ruthless. Since I have suffered a big loss, then others can't win. It just so happens that Wang Lauer made me angry yesterday. So, I will let him taste the feeling of losing money. When Gohan, the killing god, was finally sent away, the boss finally let out a long sigh of relief. His wife came over trembling and asked with a sad face, Husband, should we call the police? Call the police, my ass. Do you want to send all of us to the police station? The boss slapped his wife in the face and scolded. Are you kidding me? How can we call the police about this? Otherwise, I won't have the face to live in this world. But this time, we didn't suffer a loss. If that killing god can really deal with Wang Lauer, we can make money from his territory. Thinking of this, the boss laughed again. In the next few hours, the underworld of Shanghai spent the most terrifying morning of their lives, which also created an earth-shattering legend of Shanghai's underworld. All the well-known underworld bosses were attacked by a young man alone in a very short period of time. No matter how powerful the thugs in their hands were, no matter how many guns they had, they were no match for the young man. Someone even brought out a rocket launcher. As a result, before the rocket launcher was fired, his head was cut off. However, except for the underworld bosses who relied on kidnapping children and forcing young girls into prostitution, who were killed by the young man without hesitation, the rest of the bosses basically kept their lives as long as they paid the money honestly. According to incomplete statistics, more than 15 bosses were attacked in this morning alone, extorting more than 1 billion yuan. It could be said to be the most legendary and darkest day in the history of Shanghai's underworld. Granny, take it. Everything is here. Under the scorching sun, a young girl whose clothes were worth millions of yuan was helping a gray-haired old woman pick up the drink bottles on the ground. Qijian was quite famous in Shanghai University. Basically, most of the students knew this unique young lady who wanted to do 3 good deeds in a day. So, many students took the initiative to hand over the drink bottles in their hands to Qijian. There was no need for Qijian to bend down to pick them up. Among them, many students simply poured away the half-finished drinks in their hands, or the drinks that had just been opened. Then, they happily handed the empty bottles in their hands to Qijian. Among them, there were some tall, handsome, well-proportioned handsome men and male gods. However, no matter how handsome the other party was, Qijian did not show any extra expression. It only thanked them. These are all for you. Suddenly, a person handed over a whole box of mineral water. Qijian glanced at it and suddenly rolled its eyes. It raised its head and said, "Even if you have so much money that you have nowhere to spend it, please pour the water in the bottle for me." "Oh." The other party responded with an "oh." Then, with a flash of silver light, the caps of the mineral water bottles flew up, and the water inside the bottles also rose. Without any external force, the water spurted out of the bottles like a fountain, defying the laws of gravity. Soon, all the mineral water in the mineral water bottle was sprayed out. The other party handed the empty mineral water bottle to Qijian and said with a smile, "Okay, you can take it now. How did you do it?" Qijian finally could not maintain its calm expression. It raised its head and asked the other party in surprise, "It's you." Qijian recognized the identity of the man in front of it at a glance. Wasn't he the person who helped it when it did 3 good deeds in a day this morning? Oh, right. He also said that he was its neighbor. "Qijian, we meet again." Gohan smiled slightly. Qijian thought that Gohan meant that they met again this morning. When Gohan said that they would meet again, he was referring to the time they met after they left Shanghai Pass. Counting from that time, it had been more than a month since they last met. "Oomph, you deliberately provoked me at that time. You wanted to attract my attention, didn't you?" Qijian snorted coldly. "I've seen many people like you, and now you want to attract me with magic. Go away. I'm not interested in seeing you." Qijian was telling the truth. Ever since her identity was exposed in Shanghai University, there were countless boys who tried to approach her through various means. Although the way the man in front of her used magic to attract her was a little strange, it was just some magic. There was nothing to be surprised about. "I do want to attract you." Gohan nodded and admitted readily. "Then tell me, what did I do to attract your attention? I'm quite rich now, and I can satisfy you in everything." "You're crazy." Qijian rolled its eyes at Gohan, only to find that the clothes he was wearing were indeed different from this morning. This morning, Gohan was wearing some street stall goods of unknown brand, which was actually a high-end brand from 1,000 years later. Now, he had changed into a set of decent clothes, and the price was actually not worse than what Qijian was wearing. However, this was nothing for Qijian. She said coldly and arrogantly, You never need money to attract my attention, because in Shanghai, no one is richer than me. Okay. Gahan shrugged his shoulders. He didn't expect Qi to change its character template and become a domineering female CEO. But it didn't matter, Gahan could not subdue Qi, this little hussy. I heard that you want to do 3 good deeds in a day. How about this? Let's make a deal. Gahan changed his words and said, You do good deeds to help me, and I do good deeds to help you. What do you think? Go away. Who wants to help you? Qi rolled its eyes at Gahan, picked up its bag, and was about to leave. However, before it could take 2 steps, a little guy suddenly rushed into Qi arms. Qi mommy. Qi mommy. She even rubbed her oily mouth on Qi face with all her might, smearing the foundation on Qi face. Hey, whose child are you? Who is your mother? Qi was so angry that it wanted to grab the little girl hanging on its body, but it didn't expect that the little girl was so slippery. No matter how hard it tried, it couldn't catch the little girl. Instead, it let the little girl hang on its body. In the end, it sat on Qi neck and said proudly, Mom Qi, don't move, or Qingpin can't help but pee. This sentence was like a nuclear bomb, and Qi was so scared that it didn't dare to move anymore. It was afraid that the ungrateful little girl would pee on its neck. If that happened, it would be too ashamed to live in Shanghai University anymore. Who the hell are you, you little boy? Why are you pestering me like this? Qi was so angry that it almost cried. You are my mom, Qi, is my dad, Gahan, and we're your Qingpin babies. Qingpin replied in a childish voice. Unexpectedly, the next second she began to cry. She said while crying, Mom, didn't you promise Qingpin when you were young that you would take Qingpin to the park to play when you were rich? Why don't you want Qingpin and Dad Gahan now? Qingpin is so sad, I miss my mom. What? Miss Qi already has a child. Yes. Looking at her age, I guess she was pregnant when she was in high school. I didn't expect Miss Qi to be such a person. Yes, I heard that Miss Qi took a year off from high school. Is it because of this reason? Don't talk nonsense. I took a year off from high school because I was sick, seriously ill. Hearing the discussion of the crowd, Qi was so angry that its face turned pale. It tried hard to explain. It was a pity that the more Qi explained, the darker it became. The more Qi explained, the more it looked like the truth. Well done. Gahan touched Qingpin's head lovingly and praised. Okay, I agree. Let's do as you say. Let's trade. Qi shouted helplessly. She knew that without Gahan's cooperation, she would never be able to wash off this stain in her life. Well, do me a favor first, Gahan said lightly. What favor? There is a note here. Just read the words on the note. After Gahan finished speaking, he handed a note to Qi. So simple. Qi took the note with doubt. Then her face turned red instantly. She threw the note directly to Gahan's face and scolded, You bastard, don't even think about it. Okay. Gahan smiled indifferently. Qingpin, does your stomach still hurt? Do you want to take a dump now? Oh, Qingpin's stomach hurts. Ouch. Qingpin hurts so much. Seeing Qingpin's performance without acting skills, Qi completely collapsed. Her eyes were full of pitiful tears. She reluctantly picked up the note again and read it tremblingly. Gahan, I like you so much. Can I marry you and be your wife? Gahan didn't ask Qi to read this sentence for no reason. This morning, Qingpin recovered her memory after saying this sentence to Gahan. So Gahan took it for granted that as long as Qi said this sentence to herself, then Qi should be able to recover her original memory. But it turned out that Gahan miscalculated. When Qi read the sentence on the note angrily, not only did it not recall the memory of Gahan, but its eyes were full of hatred for Gahan. Damn, it seems that I miscalculated. Gahan's heart thumped. He seemed to take it for granted. But what was the problem? Was this sentence only effective for Qingpin, or did it only work when she took a bath in the water like Qingpin? Chapter 1208. Baby. Wang Jia, the richest man in Shanghai and the boss of Shunfeng Group, was just about to talk to his precious daughter. However, The other party ignored him and went upstairs angrily. Wang Jia was confused and immediately called someone to ask about it. After learning that an ungrateful man and a child had pestered his daughter this afternoon, Wang Jia was so angry that he immediately called his friend in the Public Security Bureau and asked the Public Security Bureau to arrest the brat immediately. Putting aside Wang Jia's plan to stand up for her daughter, Qijian hugged her pillow and burst into tears the moment she returned to her room. The humiliation she received today was something she had never experienced in her entire life. Guhan's smelly face was like a seal that was deeply engraved in her mind. She was so angry that she wanted to raise her little fist and smash the other party's face into pieces. After crying for about an hour or two, Qijian finally felt hungry. He opened his backpack to look for a few pieces of chocolate to fill his stomach. But when he opened his bag, he was surprised to find a small dagger in his bag that he didn't know when it appeared. Ridiculous! Qijian directly threw the small dagger aside, then carefully took out a bucket of instant noodles from the cupboard in the room. Then, like a thief, she went to the living room to get a pot of hot water and began to make the instant noodles happily. Oomph. Usually, they say that instant noodles are not good. They have preservatives, are fried, and cause cancer. They just don't let me eat it. Qijian muttered to herself while waiting for the noodles to be ready. I don't want to do what you want. If you want to blame something, blame it on my bad mood today. Today, I want to taste the taste of instant noodles. Qijian was born in a rich family and became pitiful. She had never even tasted instant noodles in her life. Sigh, Dad is too much. I don't know why he believes in old man's words so much. He said that I should do 3 good things every day. So, I should do 3 good things every day. In the end, after doing good deeds and being a good person all my life, in the end, I still get bullied by bad people. What the hell am I after? Qijian continued to complain, but these words completely subverted her perfect, rich goddess image. I've decided from tomorrow on, I won't do good things. I want to do bad things. I want to be a bad woman. Qijian found a lot of things to say until the aroma of the instant noodles tempted her stomach to growl. She couldn't wait to open the lid of the instant noodles and was about to have a good meal. Suddenly, a figure scurried to her side, picked up the bowl of instant noodles in front of her, and began to eat it in big mouthfuls. It's you again. He took a closer look and realized that the person who snatched his instant noodles was actually the little lowly who made him want to cry, but had no tears this afternoon. His nose suddenly twitched, and he couldn't hold back the tears in his eyes anymore. He began to cry loudly. Mom, Qijian, don't cry. I'm not eating this noodle anymore. I'll return it to you. Seeing that Qijian was crying, Qingpin suddenly panicked. He put down the instant noodles in his hand and handed it back to Qijian. Qijian looked down. Oh my God, there was only a little bit of noodles left in it, and some white, like Qingpin's saliva, floating on the soup. She immediately cried, even more sadly. Qingpin, didn't I tell you not to make Qijian cry like this afternoon? She's also very pitiful. Guhan's voice sounded in Qijian's ear. Qijian raised his head and saw that Guhan also appeared in his room. Oh my God, it seems that these 2 guys treat my room as their home. Qijian suddenly felt that the whole life seemed to be full of evil. Go away. If you don't leave, I'll call the police. Qijian felt that she couldn't stay silent anymore. She took out her mobile phone from her bag and dialed 110. But before she could unlock it, she felt a pebble hit the back of her hand. Her palm naturally loosened and the phone flew out. Dad! Help! Dad! Qijian turned around and wanted to rush out of the room. But Guhan stretched out his arm, and Qijian was naturally held in Guhan's arms. Guhan intimately pinched Qijian's nose and smiled. Well, we've been husband and wife for a long time. Don't be angry with me. Who's been husband and wife for a long time? We've never seen each other. Qijian was so angry that he opened his small mouth and bit Guhan's arm. Guhan didn't dodge and just let Qijian bite him, until Qijian's teeth were sore and she used up all her strength. Guhan lovingly touched Qijian's cheek and smiled. How about it? Are you done venting your anger? Don't you know pain? Qijian suddenly found that she had no way to deal with the man in front of her. She could only reluctantly let go of her teeth and looked at Guhan pitifully. What on earth do you like about me? I'll change, okay? What nonsense are you talking about? You're my woman. I'm here to take you home. Gahan smiled. You're the fool. I'm a virgin. Don't tarnish my innocence. Chi Jian said bitterly. Hey, to tell you the truth, this is an illusion, and you're my wife. It's just that you've lost your memory because of the illusion. I'm here to take you home from this illusion. Guhan said frankly and honestly. Che, have you read too many online novels? You're crazy. Chi Jian certainly didn't believe what Gahan said. Gahan didn't care. After whispering with Qingpin for a while, he smiled and said, By the way, we made a deal this afternoon. We agreed that if you help me do something, I'll repay you with something. Since you've already read the words on the note from me, I naturally have to repay you. Forget it, I don't need it. Staying far away from me is the best reward you can give me. Chi Jian said with a bitter and helpless face. I am so hungry. No, I said I'll repay you, so I'll repay you. Come with me. Gahan didn't wait for Chi Jian to agree. He directly hugged Chi Jian in his arms and then jumped out of the window with Chi Jian. Help! Help! Although Chi Jian's family lived in a villa, its room was on the second floor. It was at least 4 or 5 meters high. If it fell like this, it might break a bone or something. Chi Jian naturally screamed in fear. But Chi Jian was scared for a long time. It didn't feel any pain from falling. Instead, it felt light, as if it was flying in the air. Chi Jian quickly opened its eyes and looked. Oh my God! It was actually flying in the sky. And the one flying with it was obviously Guhan, who was holding it tightly in his arms. You can actually fly. Chi Jian touched Gahan's body and found that there was nothing on him except for a set of clothes. It suddenly screamed in horror. Are you a god or a monster? Do you want to eat me? You think too much. I can't bear to eat you. I'm still hoping that you can help me give birth to a child. Gahan touched Chi Jian's belly. Chi Jian's face immediately turned red, but it didn't stop Gahan from touching its belly. Maybe it was because Chi Jian was afraid that its movement would disturb Gahan's flight and cause the two of them to fall from the sky together. Hey, what do you want to do with me? Chi Jian didn't know how many times it had asked this question, but Gahan never gave it an answer. He just kept flying in the sky. It wasn't until they flew from the villa area of the forest to Shanghai that they stopped in a bustling commercial street. This is Pudong Automobile City. Chi Jian, who was quite familiar with Shanghai, recognized where it was at this time at a glance. Just like the name said, this was a car city that specialized in selling cars. Almost all the car brands in the world were gathered here. There were hundreds of car 4S shops. About half of the cars in Shanghai were sold from this car city. Although it was around 9 o'clock in the evening, this car city was still busy. The lights were brightly lit, and a steady stream of people was surging in the car city. Why did you bring me here? Chi Jian asked in a low voice. Do you still need to ask? Of course, I came to the car city to buy a car. Gohan replied with a smile. But I didn't bring money with me. I didn't even bring my phone. Chi Jian said with a troubled expression. Don't worry, I'll pay for it. You don't have to spend money. Gohan laughed and took out 2 dark sunglasses from his dimensional pocket. He handed one to Chi Jian and said, Put on. Why should I bring this thing? Chi Jian asked in confusion. Are you stupid? Gohan chuckled. We're going to do bad things. Of course, we have to cover our faces when doing bad things. Otherwise, what should we do if we are recognized? Do bad things. Hearing these words, Chi Jian's blood suddenly began to surge quickly, unconsciously. Not only did she not feel any disgust in her heart, but she also felt endless excitement. Just like what Chi Jian said to herself just now, there was indeed a desire to do bad things in the depths of her heart. After putting on the sunglasses, Guhan took Chi Jian into a car club called Golden Palace Luxury Car Club. As soon as he entered the door, he said to the waiter in a generous manner, You, bring me the best car in your shop. I'll buy it. Who is this? How arrogant. The salespeople in the shop turned their heads and saw a man and a woman wearing sunglasses walking in. Hey, what are these clothes? The salespeople in these luxury car 4S stores might not have any other skills, but their ability to recognize people or clothes was indeed superb. With just a glance, they could tell that the clothes worn by this man and woman were all worth more than 1 million yuan. They were a once-in-a-lifetime luxury customer. Perhaps this half a year's bonus would fall on this man and woman. All the salespeople in the 4S shop surrounded them and began to promote the new cars to Gahan and Chidian. Chidian's face was not good, which made people feel suffocated. "Get out of my way. Don't you see my woman is scared by you?" Seeing this scene, Guhan shouted domineeringly. The salespeople were startled and instantly stepped back for fear of angering this master. Chidian blushed and shrank in Gahan's arms, secretly twisting on the soft flesh of Gahan's waist, and scolded in a low voice, "Who is your woman? Who are you saying is your woman?" Ahem. Guhan grabbed Chidian's hand and said to the salesmen with smiles on their faces, "I'm here to buy the best car today. Hurry up and bring me the best car you have, or I'll leave." Here. A beautiful saleswoman reacted the fastest. Striding forward with her long legs, she pinched her sweet voice and called out to Guhan, "Master, over here. The best car is over here." Oh. Guhan immediately walked over with Chidian. In the center of the luxury car club, there was a pitch-black Batmobile that was full of cool and arrogant words. "Boss, this is the unique treasure of our store, the Bugatti Batmobile." The beautiful saleswoman immediately introduced with a sweet smile, "This is the Batmobile made by DC Comics and Bugatti Veyron last year to celebrate the Batman movie series. There are only 99 of them in the world, and this is the only Bugatti Batmobile in Shanghai. Our boss spent a lot of effort and begged many favors to buy it. The global price is $99 million US. I'll give you a discount and make it $9 million US." When the beautiful saleswoman finished speaking, her whole body was almost pressed against Gahan's body. An orchid-like perfume drifted into Gahan's nose along with the breeze. Of course, Chidian, who was behind Gahan, also had a nose. Humph, Chanel no. 8 Perfume, a cheap product specially developed for those prostitutes in London. It smells coquettish. Seeing that the female saleswoman shamelessly pressed against him, Chidian's face suddenly changed, and he said in a strange tone, The beautiful saleswoman's face suddenly became as ugly as a pig's liver. Didn't Chidian's words mean that she was a prostitute? "Hey, you can't say that. It's also a job requirement." Gahan laughed, then took out 5 thick stacks of $100 bills from his arms. Without looking at them, he threw them directly in front of the beautiful saleswoman and said in a heroic manner, "This is my apology on behalf of my wife." "Thank you, boss. Thank you, boss." The beautiful saleswoman waited a little and knew that each stack of money was about 10,000 US. In other words, Chidian had given her a tip of 50,000 US. This immediately made the beautiful saleswoman's eyebrows raised in joy, and the surrounding saleswomen's eyes turned red with jealousy. My goodness, in the blink of an eye, I earned 50,000 US in tips. If I knew this would happen, I would have sprayed some of this Chanel No. 8 perfume. The beautiful saleswoman did not care about Chidian's ugly expression, as well as the stares of her peers around her. Once again, she stuck to Gahan's side. She wanted to rub her whole body into Gahan's body, and said in a sweet voice, "Boss, do you want me to take you to test the car? I guarantee that it will be strong and flavorful. Get out of my way." Before Gahan could speak, Chidian took the lead and kicked the beautiful saleswoman's stomach, directly sending her flying out. She fell heavily on the ground with all 4 feet in the air, and even the translucent sexy panties inside her skirt were exposed. "So cool," Chidian said with a comfortable face. She never thought that kicking people would be such a cool thing, especially when he kicked this bitch away from Guhan's side. It was simply too satisfying. "Hey, Chidian, how can you bully people?" Guhan looked at Chidian with a reproachful look, then took out 10 stacks of bills from his clothes, put them in Chidian's hand, and said warmly, "Hurry up and make it up to me." "Okay." Chidian's eyes under the sunglasses were full of smiles. She picked up the 1,000 yuan bills that Gahan gave her and threw them all into the skirt of the beautiful saleswoman. "Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam." The beautiful saleswoman, who looked like she was about to cry a moment ago, suddenly smiled happily again. She did not care how insulting she was. She tightly clamped her legs that were wearing black stockings. While she thanked Qidian, she was afraid that the bills in her skirt would come out. She looked so sad and pitiful. I'm so envious. I really want to be kicked. Seeing this scene, the other saleswomen did not have any anger or sympathy. Instead, they were full of deep envy. Being kicked by someone could be exchanged for 100,000 yuan, so they wished they could be kicked a few times every day. Okay, I want to drive this car out and try it. Which one of you will sit in the car and try it with me? At this time, Gahan had already sat in the driver's seat and co-driver's seat with Qidian and said to the other saleswomen around him, "Let me do it. Let me do it." With the example just now, the other saleswomen went crazy at this time. Another saleswoman took the lead and rushed to the front desk to ask for the key of the Batmobile. She just handed it to Gahan and was about to get in the car to try it with him and see if she could get a big tip. Unexpectedly, Gahan pushed her chest and pushed her to the ground. At the same time, he inserted the key directly into the keyhole and twisted it. The Batmobile made a roaring engine sound and rushed out like an arrow leaving the bow. It directly hit several glass walls of the luxury car club. Before anyone realized what had happened, it had already disappeared without a trace. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.